Tonight, we are standing beneath a sky so ancient that even the stars seem uncertain of their names. The night air feels cool against your skin. Far away beyond dark hills and silent waters, strange lights drift across the heavens. The world is young. Mountains still seem to remember their birth. Rivers carve paths through untouched valleys. The sea breathes slowly beneath the moon. And somewhere within this vast and mysterious cosmos, a child is growing. His name is Cronus. Before we continue tonight's journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy exploring these ancient stories together. And if you wish, share your location and local time in the comments. There is something comforting about knowing where fellow travelers are listening from as we wander through these ancient myths together. Now settle comfortably. Allow the noise of the modern world to fade, and let us step backward into a forgotten age. Because a question waits for us there. Why did the ruler of the Golden Age become one of mythology's greatest tragedies? The answer begins long before Cronus ever held a crown. Long before humanity knew peace. Long before Olympus rose above the clouds. You find yourself standing beside a silent shoreline beneath a sky crowded with stars. The sea wind carries the scent of salt and distant rain. Waves move gently against black rocks. Above you stretches the endless vault of heaven itself. In Greek myth, heaven was not merely a place. Heaven was a being. The great sky god Uranus spread himself across the world like an immense living dome. Below him rested Gaia, the Earth Mother, whose mountains, forests, and fertile plains formed the foundation of existence. Together, they brought forth children, unlike anything that would come later. Some were beautiful. Others were terrifying. All were powerful. Among them were the Titans. The Titans were not yet gods in the familiar Olympian sense. They belonged to an older generation. Their presence felt deeper, closer to the raw forces of creation itself. And among these mighty beings was Cronus, the youngest of the first Titan sons. Even in ancient times, storytellers disagreed about certain details. Some traditions portrayed Cronus as ambitious from birth. Others suggested something quieter. A thoughtful child, a watchful child, a son who listened more than he spoke. No one can know which version the earliest singers believed. But the mystery remains. What kind of being was Cronus before power found him? You imagine him wandering across the vast landscapes of primordial Earth. Mountain winds move through immense forests. Silver rivers shine beneath moonlight. Sacred fires burn in hidden groves where ancient spirits gather. Around him stand his brothers and sisters, Oceanus whose thoughts flow as endlessly as the waters, Quaos, seeker of heavenly mysteries, Hyperion associated with light, Iapetus destined to father remarkable descendants, and many others. Together they belong to a family powerful enough to shape the world. Yet beneath the beauty of creation, something feels wrong. You sense it before Cronus does. The sky appears magnificent from afar, but shadows often hide behind greatness. As the young Titan grows, he begins noticing tensions within his family. When Uranus passes overhead, conversations become quieter. Laughter fades. Even Gaia seems troubled. The Earth Mother still nurtures forests and flowers. She still brings life into the world. Yet sorrow lingers behind her eyes. At first, Cronus cannot understand why. Children rarely see the full truth of their parents, even divine children. One evening, as golden sunlight fades across distant hills, he watches Gaia standing alone beside a cliff overlooking the sea. The breeze moves through her dark hair. Far below, waves strike stone. She looks neither angry nor afraid, only burdened. The sight remains with him. Years pass, perhaps centuries. Time moves differently among primordial beings. Cronus grows stronger. His voice deepens. His understanding expands. Yet the mystery surrounding his family only deepens. Then strange signs begin appearing. In ancient myths, destiny rarely announces itself openly. Instead it whispers. A dream, a shadow, an omen. A bird flying where it should not. A storm forming beneath clear skies. One night, Cronus dreams of a crown made from stars. It rests upon his head. For a brief moment, he feels immense power. Then the crown breaks apart. The stars scatter into darkness. He awakens unsettled. Some later storytellers interpreted such dreams as signs of future kingship. Others believed they reflected inner desires not yet understood. Perhaps both explanations contain truth. What matters is the feeling that remains. A sense that fate is already moving. Slowly, quietly, inevitably. The following days bring more unsettling moments. Thunder rolls across cloudless heavens. The sea becomes strangely still. Animals pause as though listening to distant voices. Even the winds seem uncertain. Among ancient peoples, such events carried meaning. Nothing happened without purpose. The cosmos itself communicated through signs. And while no one could fully decipher those messages, many believed destiny had begun weaving another thread, a thread connected to Cronus. Yet he remains unaware of how important he will become. For now he is simply a son, a younger brother, a titan trying to understand his place in a vast and complicated family. You walk beside him through moonlit valleys. The scent of pine fills the air. Crickets sing among grasses touched by silver light. Above Uranus stretches across the heavens in overwhelming majesty. The sky god appears eternal, unchallengeable, perfect. But appearances deceive. Far beneath the surface, another story is unfolding. A story hidden from many of Uranus's children. A story that will change Cronus forever. Because the ruler of heaven carries a secret, a terrible secret, one that even Gaia struggles to endure. The consequences of that secret will shape every major choice Cronus makes throughout his life. His ambitions, his fears, his loves, even the tragedy for which he will be remembered. Historians continue to debate how ancient Greeks understood Cronus during the earliest periods of worship. Some surviving evidence suggests he was viewed as a wise ruler, associated with harvests and abundance. Others emphasize the darker aspects of his mythology. Yet perhaps those contradictions reveal something important. Human beings often remember powerful figures in conflicting ways, especially those who change the world. And Cronus will certainly change the world, for better and worse. The stars drift slowly overhead. The sea wind grows colder. Night deepens across the young earth, and somewhere beyond the sight of gods and titans alike, destiny waits patiently. Soon, Cronus will discover the suffering hidden beneath his father's rule. Soon he will learn that power often grows from pain. Soon he will face choices capable of reshaping the cosmos itself. But that time has not yet arrived. For now, he remains a young titan, standing beneath the immense shadow of heaven, unaware that the first steps toward greatness and tragedy have already begun. And deep beneath the world where light rarely reaches imprisoned voices, continue calling through the darkness. Yet the consequences of those voices have not revealed themselves. Not yet. The night feels colder now. You stand upon a high ridge, where ancient winds sweep across the newborn world. Below stretches a landscape untouched by cities, temples, or mortal kingdoms. Forests ripple like dark oceans beneath the moon. Rivers shine like silver threads. The stars above seem close enough to touch. Cronus often comes here alone. There is something comforting about distance, something comforting about silence. Yet lately, even silence has begun to trouble him. The dream of the broken crown continues returning. Not every night, just enough to linger. Whenever he wakes, he feels the same sensation. A warning without words. A question without an answer. The older titans dismiss such things. Dreams come and go. Clouds form and vanish. But among the earliest beings, dreams are rarely meaningless. The world itself still speaks, and destiny often prefers whispers to commands. One evening, while wandering through valleys carved by Gaia's ancient hands, Cronus notices something unusual. The birds have stopped singing. The air feels strangely heavy. Even the wind seems reluctant to move. You follow him across rocky ground covered with pale grass. The scent of damp earth rises from the soil. Shadows lengthen beneath towering cliffs. Then he hears it. A sound, faint, almost impossible to distinguish from distant thunder. A groan, low, deep, painful. Cronus pauses. The sound comes again. Not from the sky, not from the sea, from below, far below. He kneels and presses one hand against the earth. For a moment, nothing happens. Then another vibration passes through the stone beneath his fingers. A tremor, a voice, or something close to a voice. He rises slowly. Confusion fills his thoughts. The world itself should not groan. The mountains should not sound wounded. Yet the feeling remains. Something beneath the earth is suffering. That night he seeks Gaia. The Earth Mother stands beside a sacred spring hidden among olive trees and flowering shrubs. Moonlight reflects from the water. Fireflies drift through the darkness. She seems older than before. Not physically, something deeper, as though carrying a burden invisible to others. Cronus approaches carefully. Mother, he asks, what lies beneath the earth? For several moments, Gaia says nothing. The spring continues its gentle song. Leaves rustle softly overhead. Finally, she turns toward him, and for the first time he sees sorrow openly reflected in her face. It unsettles him. Gaia is the foundation of the world. To imagine her wounded feels impossible. Yet sorrow remains unmistakable. There are things hidden below, she says quietly. Things your father fears. The answer raises more questions than it resolves. Fear. Uranus feared nothing. At least that is what every child believed. The ruler of heaven controlled the cosmos itself. What threat could possibly trouble him? But Gaia does not continue. Instead, she gazes toward the distant horizon. The conversation ends. The mystery grows. Days pass. Then weeks. Cronus begins noticing other signs. Whenever Uranus crosses the heavens, strange tensions emerge. Gaia becomes silent. Certain titans avoid speaking. Ancient spirits disappear into forests. Even the animals seem uneasy. A pattern slowly reveals itself, and once seen, it cannot be ignored. Something is wrong within the divine family. One stormy evening, the truth finally begins to emerge. Thunder rolls across dark clouds. Rain strikes stone. Lightning flashes across the sky. You shelter beside Cronus beneath an overhanging cliff while the storm rages overhead. Then another sound reaches him. Not thunder, not wind, a cry rising from deep within the earth. This time it is unmistakable. Pain, raw and terrible. The sound vanishes almost immediately, but it is enough. Cronus can no longer ignore what he has heard. The next morning he begins searching, across valleys, through forests, along hidden caves known only to the oldest beings. Eventually he discovers something few others have seen. A crack within the earth, a vast fissure descending into darkness. Cold air rises from below. The scent reminds you of stone untouched by sunlight. Ancient, silent, forgotten. Cronus approaches carefully. Then he hears voices, many voices, weak, distant, yet undeniably real. The realization strikes him like lightning. Someone is imprisoned below. Many someones. The discovery changes everything. Eventually, Gaia reveals the truth. Long ago, she had given birth to children unlike the Titans. The Cyclopes, powerful one-eyed giants associated with craftsmanship and elemental force. And the Hundred-Handers, enormous beings possessing unmatched strength. Their appearance terrified Uranus. Some traditions claim he feared their power. Others suggest he simply could not bear their strangeness. Historians continue debating how ancient audiences interpreted his actions. But the result remained the same. Uranus imprisoned them, buried them deep within Gaia's body, hidden away from the world, condemned to darkness. For ages, the revelation horrifies Cronus. You can almost feel his thoughts racing. These imprisoned beings are not enemies. They are family, brothers, children of the same mother. And all this time they have suffered beneath the earth. The realization wounds something inside him. For perhaps the first time, admiration for Uranus begins to crack. The Sky King still appears magnificent, still powerful, still glorious. But now another image exists beside that one. A father willing to imprison his own children. A ruler whose fear outweighs compassion. That image becomes impossible to forget. In the nights that follow, Cronus returns often to the hidden fissure. He listens. Sometimes he hears distant voices, sometimes only silence, yet the silence itself feels painful. What thoughts occupy prisoners after ages in darkness? Do they still hope? Do they still dream? Do they still believe freedom is possible? No one knows. Even ancient myths leave such questions unanswered. Yet Cronus cannot stop imagining their suffering. And with each visit, his anger grows. Not wild anger. Not yet. Something slower, more dangerous. The anger of disappointment. The anger born when trust begins to die. Above him, Uranus continues ruling the heavens. Thunder still answers his commands. Stars still follow their paths. The cosmos appears unchanged. But appearances deceive. A transformation has begun. Not in the world. In Cronus himself. Until now, he has largely accepted the order of things. The sky rules. The earth obeys. The family endures. Now questions emerge. Questions that refuse to disappear. What makes a ruler worthy? Can power excuse cruelty? Does strength justify fear? The young Titan has no answers, only growing uncertainty. One night, another dream arrives. He stands beside an enormous tree. Its roots reach deep into the earth. Its branches touch the stars. The tree appears healthy, strong, eternal. Then he notices something. Rot spreads through the roots, hidden from view, slowly consuming the foundation. When he awakens, unease follows him through the day. Ancient listeners would have recognized the symbolism immediately. A kingdom can appear stable while decay grows unseen beneath it. Perhaps the dream reflects destiny, perhaps only fear. No one can know, but the image remains. Roots rotting beneath greatness, and somewhere below those roots, imprisoned voices continue calling through the darkness. Their suffering has awakened something within Cronus. Compassion, anger, responsibility, perhaps all three. He does not yet realize it, but the path toward rebellion has already begun. Far away, Gaia watches her youngest Titan's son with growing attention, for she has begun sensing something as well, a possibility, a dangerous possibility, and soon she will place before Cronus a choice capable of changing the cosmos forever. But for now, the Earth remains silent, waiting, listening, and deep beneath the world, forgotten prisoners continue dreaming of freedom. The winds of the young world carry a different feeling now. Not danger, not yet. Something quieter, expectation. You sense it while walking beside Cronus through valleys washed in golden afternoon light. The grasses bend gently beneath the breeze. Birds circle above distant cliffs. The scent of wild herbs drifts through the air. The world appears peaceful. Yet beneath that peace, invisible currents are moving. The imprisoned voices below the earth have changed something inside Cronus. Once he viewed the cosmos as a stable creation. Now he sees fractures. He sees wounds. And once a wound is seen, it becomes difficult to ignore. Many nights he returns to the hidden fissure. He listens. Sometimes the cries are faint. Sometimes they are absent entirely, but their presence remains. The darkness below has become part of his thoughts, part of his conscience, part of his destiny, and Gaia knows it. The Earth Mother watches carefully. She says little, but she observes everything. One evening she summons him. The invitation itself feels unusual. Gaia rarely calls for private meetings. She is a mother to countless beings. Her attention is spread across forests, mountains, rivers, creatures and gods. Yet tonight she wishes to speak only with him. The sun has just disappeared below the horizon when Cronus arrives. You walk beside him along a narrow path illuminated by moonlight. The air smells of olive trees and distant rain. Cicadas sing softly among the grasses. Ahead stands a sacred grove. Ancient trees rise toward the stars. Their roots twist through stone older than memory. At the center burns a small fire. Its golden light dances across the darkness. Gaia waits beside it. For a moment neither speaks. The flames crackle softly. Shadows move across the trunks of the trees. Above, thousands of stars watch silently. Finally, Gaia breaks the silence. Tell me what troubles you. Cronus lowers his gaze. The answer comes easily. The prisoners. Gaia closes her eyes, not from surprise, from sorrow, as though she has carried this conversation within her heart for a very long time. You have heard them. It is not a question. No child should suffer such a fate, Cronus replies, especially not for so long. The fire pops. A shower of sparks rises into the night. Gaia watches them disappear among the stars. Then she speaks words that change everything. Your father fears what he cannot control. The statement hangs in the air. Simple, yet powerful. Cronus feels its truth immediately. The imprisoned brothers, the tension within the family, the silence surrounding the subject. Everything suddenly fits together. Fear, not justice. Not necessity, fear. That realization wounds him more deeply than he expected, because despite everything, he has loved Uranus. Children often admire powerful parents. They see strength before they see flaws, majesty before weakness. But now another image has emerged. A ruler so afraid of uncertainty that he buried his own children alive. The contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Gaia studies her son carefully. Then she asks a question. What would you do differently? The answer does not come immediately. Cronus stares into the fire. The flames sway gently. For a long time he remains silent. Eventually he speaks. I would free them. The words surprise even him. Once spoken, however, they feel undeniable. True. Necessary. The Earth Mother nods slowly, as though she has been waiting to hear them. The fire burns lower. Night deepens around the grove. And then Gaia reveals a secret she has never shared openly. Long ago, before the Titans reached maturity, she sought guidance from ancient forces woven into creation itself. Some traditions describe these forces as primordial destinies. Others speak of prophetic powers older than gods. Whatever their nature, they offered a warning, a prediction, a glimpse of what might come. One day Uranus would fall. One of his own children would overthrow him. The prophecy sends a chill through Cronus. The breeze suddenly feels colder. The stars seem farther away. He has heard stories of omens, stories of destiny. But hearing such a prophecy spoken directly feels different, more real, more dangerous. For a moment, neither speaks. The implications unfold slowly, like distant thunder approaching across a calm sea. Eventually, Cronus asks the question he cannot avoid. Which child? Gaia looks directly into his eyes. You. The grove becomes silent. Even the insects seem to pause. You can almost hear his heartbeat. 1,000 emotions collide within him. Disbelief, fear, confusion, responsibility. The prophecy feels impossible. Uranus rules the heavens themselves. How could anyone challenge him? How could a sun overthrow the sky? And yet another part of him remembers the prisoners, remembers Gaia's sorrow, remembers the growing rot beneath apparent perfection. Perhaps the impossible is already happening. The Earth Mother continues speaking. The future is never fixed. Her voice remains calm. Prophecy reveals possibilities. Choices determine how those possibilities unfold. This idea appears often in Greek mythology. Fate guides events, yet individuals still choose their paths. The tension between destiny and free will creates many of mythology's greatest tragedies, and Cronus now stands at the center of that tension. He rises slowly. The weight of the revelation presses upon him. He came seeking answers. Instead, he has been handed the future, or at least one possible future. The burden feels enormous. For days afterward, he wanders alone, across hills, along rivers, through forests touched by morning mist. Everywhere he goes, the prophecy follows. You walk beside him beneath moonlit skies, listen to waves striking distant shores, feel cold dew soaking the grass beneath your feet. And everywhere the same question remains. Should he act, or should he remain silent? The choice is not simple. Rebellion carries consequences. Uranus is not merely a father. He is the ruler of the cosmos. Challenging him could bring unimaginable destruction, perhaps even chaos. Yet doing nothing carries consequences as well. The prisoners remain below. Gaia continues suffering. Fear continues ruling. The dilemma grows heavier each day. Then another sign appears. A dream, more vivid than any before. Cronus stands beside the sea beneath a blood-red sunset. The waters remain perfectly still. In his hands rests a blade unlike any weapon he has ever seen. Its edge shines brighter than starlight. Its surface reflects both sky and earth. Then a voice emerges from nowhere, neither male nor female, ancient beyond description. The harvest comes. He awakens before dawn. His heart pounds. The dream feels less like imagination and more like a message. Ancient audiences often interpreted such dreams as communications from destiny itself. Whether literal or symbolic remains uncertain, but their influence cannot be denied. When morning arrives, Cronus seeks Gaia once more. The Earth Mother seems unsurprised, almost as though she expected him. Without speaking, she leads him deeper into the sacred grove, past ancient trees, past hidden springs, toward a place few beings have ever seen. There, wrapped in cloth woven from primordial fibers, rests an object. Long, curved, cold. Even from a distance, it radiates significance. Gaia carefully unfolds the covering. Moonlight strikes polished metal. The blade gleams. An adamant sickle, forged from one of the hardest substances in existence. A weapon created not for war, but for transformation, for severing what must be separated, for ending one age and beginning another. Cronus stares at it silently. The dream suddenly feels real. The prophecy feels real. Destiny itself seems to stand before him. Gaia places one hand upon the weapon. Her expression reveals both hope and sorrow, because she understands what comes next. And deep within his heart, Cronus understands it as well. A choice approaches. A terrible choice. One that will determine the future of gods, titans, and mortals alike. The stars wheel slowly overhead. The sacred fire burns low. And somewhere beyond sight, the ruler of heaven remains unaware that the greatest challenge of his reign is already preparing to rise. Yet destiny has not revealed its final intention. Not yet. The weapon feels heavier than stone, heavier than iron, heavier than responsibility itself. You stand beside Cronus, beneath a sky crowded with stars, as the adamant sickle rests in his hands. Moonlight glides along its curved edge. The metal seems almost alive, reflecting pale silver light across the sacred grove. For a long time he says nothing. Neither does Gaia. Words have limits. Some decisions exist beyond language. The night air carries the scent of pine and damp earth. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls through the darkness. Everything appears peaceful. Yet the future of the cosmos now hangs upon a single choice. Cronus understands what Gaia is asking. Not merely resistance, not merely defiance, revolution. The overthrow of heaven itself. The thought should feel impossible, and part of him still believes it is. After all, Uranus remains the most powerful being he has ever known. The ruler of the skies, master of storms, father of titans. For countless ages, his authority has appeared absolute. How does a sun challenge the sky? How does a child rise against the force that shaped his existence? The questions linger. But another image lingers as well. The imprisoned brothers, the hidden suffering, the fear disguised as strength. Every memory pulls him toward the same conclusion. Something must change. Yet certainty does not erase pain. For several days, Cronus withdraws from others. He wanders alone through mountain valleys wrapped in mist. He watches sunlight spread across rivers at dawn. He listens to waves breaking against lonely shores. You walk beside him through landscapes untouched by human feet. The world feels vast, ancient, silent, and everywhere the same struggle continues inside him. Many myths portray heroes eagerly embracing destiny. Cronus is different. His hesitation reveals something important. He does not seek conflict for its own sake. He does not dream of conquest. Not yet. The ambition that later generations associate with him remains largely dormant. At this moment, he is a son being asked to destroy the authority he once admired. Such choices leave scars, even before they are made. One evening, he climbs a high cliff overlooking the sea. The horizon glows orange beneath the setting sun. Clouds drift slowly across the heavens. Above them all stretches Uranus, vast, magnificent, almost beautiful. Cronus gazes upward. For a brief moment, doubt returns. What if Gaia is wrong? What if rebellion brings only greater suffering? What if prophecy itself is the trap? Ancient storytellers often wrestled with such questions. Was fate unavoidable? Or did attempts to fulfill prophecy create the very future being feared? The myths never offer a simple answer, perhaps because life rarely offers one. The sea wind strengthens. Below, waves crash against dark stone. And then another sign appears. Far overhead, a brilliant star suddenly streaks across the sky. Its white trail burns through the darkness before vanishing. An omen. At least that is how many ancient observers would have understood it. A heavenly signal. A reminder that change approaches. Cronus watches until the last trace disappears. When he finally turns away, something inside him has settled. Not certainty. Resolve. There is a difference. The following nights bring preparation. Gaia gathers those willing to oppose Uranus. Few step forward. Many titans fear the consequences. Others remain loyal to the Sky King. Some simply cannot imagine victory. One by one they refuse, until only Cronus remains. The detail appears frequently in surviving traditions. Among all the titans, only Cronus agrees to act. Whether entirely true or shaped by later storytelling, the image became important. Because it transforms the story. This is no longer merely a family conflict. It becomes a test of courage, not the courage of certainty, the courage of action despite uncertainty. The appointed night eventually arrives. Clouds cover the moon. The world seems unusually still. Even the sea appears quiet. You stand hidden beside Cronus among shadows near Gaia. The Earth Mother has chosen the place carefully. A sacred region where sky and earth meet, where destiny itself seems to hold its breath. No one speaks. The silence feels immense. Then Uranus descends. The ruler of heaven appears in overwhelming splendor. Ancient light surrounds him. Stars shimmer along his vast form. His presence fills the horizon. For a moment, even now, Cronus feels the temptation to abandon everything, to remain a son, to remain obedient, to turn away. Then he remembers the voices beneath the earth, the prisoners, the suffering, the fear, and the moment passes. Gaia gives a subtle signal. The world seems to pause. Time itself slows. Cronus steps forward. The sickle flashes. What follows became one of the most famous moments in Greek mythology, and one of the most symbolic. Ancient sources describe the confrontation differently. Details vary. Certain versions emphasize violence. Others focus upon cosmic transformation. Many scholars believe the story carried meanings beyond its literal events. The separation of sky from earth, the transition between generations, the ending of one age and the beginning of another. Whatever interpretation survives, the outcome remains unchanged. Uranus falls, the reign of heaven ends. The prophecy is fulfilled. The son overthrows the father. The cosmos changes forever. The aftermath feels strangely quiet. No cheering crowds appear. No triumphant celebration erupts, only silence. Deep silence. The kind that follows a storm. Cronus stands motionless. The sickle hangs at his side. Victory should feel glorious. Instead, it feels complicated. Because the moment he fulfills destiny, he also understands something unsettling. The prophecy has become reality, and reality carries consequences. Above him, the heavens appear different now, more distant, less oppressive, yet also strangely empty. The figure who once seemed eternal has vanished from power. The impossible has happened, and if one ruler can fall, perhaps any ruler can. The thought arrives quietly, but it will remain with him for the rest of his life. Far below, the imprisoned brothers sense the change. The earth itself seems to exhale. Rivers flow more freely. Winds shift direction. Across the world, signs of transformation appear. The old order has ended. A new one begins, and at first hope flourishes. Gaia's burden appears lighter. The Titans look toward the future. The possibility of a better age emerges. For the first time, Cronus experiences what many leaders experience after achieving power: relief, pride, possibility. Yet destiny is rarely finished when victory arrives. In fact, victory often creates new dangers. Several ancient traditions preserve a curious detail. As Uranus falls from power, he offers a warning, or perhaps a curse. The exact wording differs across centuries, but the meaning remains remarkably consistent. One day Cronus will suffer the same fate. One day his own child will overthrow him. The prophecy echoes through the darkness, a mirror of what has just occurred. The son has defeated the father, and someday another son may do the same. Many listeners might expect Cronus to dismiss such words. After all, they come from a defeated ruler, a fallen king. Yet the warning lodges deep within his thoughts, like a thorn beneath the skin, like a shadow stretching across sunlight. He does not speak of it, not openly, but he remembers. And memory possesses tremendous power, especially when mixed with fear. For now, however, brighter things occupy the horizon. The Titans look toward a future free from oppression. The prisoners beneath the earth may finally know freedom. The world stands at the threshold of transformation, and Cronus, youngest of the Titan brothers, finds himself standing where he never expected to stand. At the center of creation, at the beginning of a new age, at the edge of a destiny far greater than he yet understands. The stars shine brightly above. The sea wind carries the scent of salt and distant flowers. Hope feels possible, yet hidden within that hope lies a warning. Because the choices that brought Cronus to power will someday shape his greatest fears, and the consequences of this night have only just begun to unfold. Far beyond the horizon, another thread of fate is already beginning to move. Morning arrives differently after a revolution. The sun rises over the same mountains. The same rivers flow toward the sea. The same winds move through forests and valleys. Yet everything feels changed. You stand beside Cronus upon a high ridge overlooking the young world. Dawn spreads across the horizon in shades of gold and rose. Mist drifts above distant lakes. Birds circle lazily through the brightening sky. The cosmos is awakening, and for the first time there is no ruler above him. The realization feels almost unreal. For countless ages, Uranus dominated every corner of existence. His authority stretched across heaven itself. His presence shaped the thoughts of gods, titans, and spirits alike. Now that presence is gone. A vast emptiness remains, and nature abhors emptiness. Soon a new ruler must emerge. Every eye turns toward Cronus, the young titan who dared challenge the impossible, the son who fulfilled prophecy, the liberator who broke the old order. Many believe his future is obvious. The throne belongs to him. Yet power often arrives more quietly than expected. There is no grand coronation, no marble palace, no golden crown descending from the heavens. Instead, there are responsibilities, difficult decisions, unanswered questions, the burdens hidden behind authority. You watch Cronus walk through sacred groves where ancient fires burn beside stone altars. Titans gather around him. Some offer loyalty willingly, others offer caution. A few offer envy, because even among immortals, power changes relationships. Friends become rivals. Allies become competitors. Admiration becomes suspicion. These transformations begin almost immediately. Perhaps they always do. Yet Cronus remains focused upon one goal: the prisoners, the brothers hidden beneath the earth. The victory over Uranus means little if their suffering continues. Soon, great efforts begin. The darkness below Gaia is opened. Ancient barriers are broken, and at last the imprisoned children emerge. The moment feels almost sacred. You stand among titans, watching figures rise from depths untouched by sunlight. The Cyclopes appear first. Their immense forms tower above the landscape. Their single eyes shine with intelligence rather than savagery. Then come the Hundred-Handers, massive beings whose strength seems capable of shaking mountains. For ages they knew only confinement. Now they feel sunlight, fresh air, freedom. The scene carries enormous emotional weight. Even ancient audiences likely felt its significance. A ruler had fallen. The forgotten had returned. Justice at least briefly appeared victorious. The freed brothers thank Cronus. Some traditions describe them as grateful. Others portray them as cautious after centuries of imprisonment. Either way, their liberation becomes one of his first acts as a leader. An act rooted not in ambition, but compassion. And that distinction matters, because it reveals the man Cronus still is, or perhaps the man he wishes to be. The weeks that follow bring profound changes. Without Uranus dominating the heavens, the world seems lighter. The sky appears wider. Even the seasons feel gentler. Across mountains and valleys, life flourishes. Rivers expand, forests grow denser, animals multiply. The earth itself appears relieved. Gaia certainly does. For the first time in ages, she smiles without sadness hiding beneath the expression. Those who love her notice immediately, and no one notices more than Cronus. One evening, they walk together through a meadow filled with wildflowers. The air smells of blooming herbs and warm soil. Bees drift lazily between blossoms. The Earth Mother seems peaceful. Was it worth it? Cronus asks. The question surprises her. She studies him carefully. You still wonder? He nods. The answer comes slowly. Because victory has not erased doubt. The memory of Uranus remains. The violence remains. The prophecy remains. Part of him still questions whether another path existed. Gaia eventually places a hand upon his shoulder. Every age inherits wounds from the one before it. Her voice is gentle. What matters is what you choose to build next. The words stay with him. What do you choose to build next? It becomes the defining question of his early reign. Not how he gained power, how he uses it. The Titans soon gather to determine the future of the cosmos. Ancient traditions differ regarding the exact details. Some describe formal assemblies. Others imagine decisions emerging naturally among the elder powers. Regardless of the version, one conclusion dominates. Cronus becomes king, the ruler of the Titans, master of the heavens, guardian of the world. The transformation feels extraordinary. Not long ago, he wandered uncertain paths beneath his father's shadow. Now the cosmos looks toward him for leadership, for guidance, for stability, and at first he embraces the responsibility well. This part of the story is sometimes forgotten. Later myths often focus upon his downfall, his fears, his mistakes. Yet many traditions preserved memories of a wise and capable ruler. The future Romans would even identify him with Saturn, a divine figure associated with prosperity and abundance. That association did not appear by accident. It reflected an older belief, a memory of good years, a memory of hope. You begin seeing signs of that hope everywhere. Harvests become plentiful. Rains arrive when needed. Rivers remain generous. The world seems balanced. Even conflicts among divine beings grow less common. A sense of harmony settles across creation. Some researchers believe these myths reflected humanity's longing for an ideal past. Others suggest they preserved ancient religious concepts centered around fertility and seasonal renewal. Perhaps both interpretations contain truth. Myths often survive because they speak to multiple layers of meaning simultaneously. For Cronus, however, the experience feels personal. He genuinely wishes to create something better than what existed before, to prove that power can serve rather than dominate, to become different from Uranus. And for a time he succeeds. Yet beneath every triumph a shadow remains. The prophecy, the warning spoken during his father's fall. It rarely enters conversation, rarely appears in public, yet it never fully disappears. Sometimes while standing alone beneath the stars, Cronus remembers. Sometimes while listening to distant thunder, sometimes while watching children play among sacred groves, the thought returns. A son defeated his father. Could it happen again? He dismisses the fear each time, or tries to. After all, no children exist yet. No threat looms upon the horizon. The future remains unwritten. Still certain memories resist dismissal. One night, another dream arrives. He stands upon a magnificent throne carved from stone and starlight. Around him stretches a flourishing world. Green fields, flowing rivers, happy people. Everything appears perfect. Then he notices a tiny crack beneath the throne. Nothing serious, nothing dangerous, just a crack. Yet as he watches it slowly grows. When he awakens, dawn is breaking. Birdsong fills the air. The dream fades quickly, but not entirely. Ancient listeners would have recognized the symbolism immediately. Even strong foundations require attention. Even successful rulers remain vulnerable. especially those carrying hidden fears. For now, however, the crack remains small. The world prospers. The Titans celebrate. And Cronus stands at the beginning of what later generations will remember as the greatest age humanity ever knew. An age of abundance. An age of peace. An age so extraordinary that people would spend thousands of years dreaming about its return. Yet paradise often contains the seeds of its own ending. And destiny, though quiet, has not stopped moving. Somewhere beyond sight, the future is already preparing its next chapter. There are certain mornings that seem untouched by sorrow. You feel it immediately as you walk beside Cronus through a world glowing beneath gentle sunlight. Dew sparkles upon tall grasses. Birds drift lazily across blue skies. The scent of wild figs and olive blossoms lingers in the warm air. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing feels threatened. For perhaps the first time since the beginning of creation, peace appears possible. This is the age future generations will call the Golden Age, not because everything is literally made of gold, but because memory itself will transform these years into something precious, something almost impossible, something lost. And at the center of that memory stands Cronus. The young rebel has become a king. The king is becoming a symbol, yet symbols rarely understand the role they are destined to play. For now, Cronus simply sees a world beginning to flourish. You travel with him across fertile valleys, where rivers wander through rich soil. Forests stretch across distant hills. Fruit hangs heavy from branches. Springs bubble from the earth clear and cold. The world feels generous. Ancient Greek poets later described this period in remarkable terms. Mortals lived without war, without famine, without exhausting labor. The earth provided willingly. Harvests appeared almost effortlessly. People aged slowly. Some traditions even claimed that death arrived gently like peaceful sleep. Whether ancient listeners interpreted these stories literally remains uncertain. Historians continue to debate their deeper meanings. Perhaps the Golden Age reflected memories of a simpler existence. Perhaps it represented humanity's eternal longing for harmony. Or perhaps it symbolized a spiritual relationship between people and nature. Whatever the explanation, one truth remains. The Golden Age became inseparable from the name of Cronus. You stand among mortals living during this legendary era. They do not build massive fortifications. They do not sharpen weapons for battle. They do not fear invasion. Their days unfold beneath open skies. Children laugh beside rivers. Families gather beneath olive trees. Sacred fires burn gently at twilight. Songs drift through villages long after sunset. The atmosphere feels almost dreamlike. Yet what interests you most is not the prosperity itself. It is how Cronus responds to it. Power changes people, sometimes slowly, sometimes immediately. Many rulers begin with noble intentions only to become consumed by authority. Cronus understands this danger, or at least he believes he does. Whenever possible, he travels throughout the world rather than isolating himself within halls of power. He listens, observes, learns. One afternoon, he arrives at a small settlement near the sea. Fishing boats rest along the shore. The scent of salt mingles with smoke from cooking fires. Children race across the sand while waves roll gently toward land. The villagers greet him warmly, not with fear, with affection. That distinction matters, because affection cannot be commanded. It must be earned. An elderly man approaches. His face carries the marks of many years, yet his eyes remain bright. He thanks Cronus for the peace his reign has brought. The words are simple, nothing grand, nothing ceremonial, yet they affect the Titan deeply. For a brief moment, you glimpse genuine happiness in him. Not pride, not triumph, fulfillment. The feeling surprises him, perhaps because victory over Uranus never provided it. Power never provided it. Yet helping others seems to. The realization becomes important. A ruler who values gratitude can become wise. A ruler who craves gratitude can become dangerous. The difference is subtle and often difficult to recognize, even within oneself. As seasons pass, the reputation of Cronus continues growing. Stories spread from valley to valley, across forests, across coastlines, across lands not yet mapped by human memory. The king of the Titans becomes associated with abundance, fairness, balance. Many begin viewing him almost as a father figure, a guardian watching over creation. Ancient religious traditions may have reinforced these perceptions. Some researchers believe early agricultural communities connected Cronus with harvest cycles and fertility. The symbolism feels natural. After all, under his rule, the world appears fruitful, generous, alive. Yet even during paradise, mysteries remain. One evening, while traveling through a remote mountain region, Cronus encounters an old woman living alone beside a spring. The place feels ancient, older than surrounding forests, older than nearby hills. The woman herself seems difficult to place. Her age appears impossible to determine. Some later storytellers would describe such figures as prophetic beings, messengers of fate hidden in humble forms. Whether this interpretation is correct remains unknown, yet the encounter leaves a lasting impression. As twilight deepens, she offers him water from the spring. Then she studies him carefully, far too carefully. "You have built something beautiful," she says. Cronus smiles politely. The compliment feels deserved. Then the woman adds another sentence. "The most beautiful things are often the hardest to protect." The smile fades. For a moment, neither speaks. The evening wind stirs nearby leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf calls across the mountains. The woman offers no explanation, no prophecy, no further warning, only silence. When Cronus finally departs, the words remain with him. The most beautiful things are often the hardest to protect. That night he dreams again. Dreams have become familiar companions, sometimes comforting, sometimes troubling. Tonight he stands within a vast golden field. Wheat sways gently beneath sunlight. The scene appears perfect, endless, peaceful. Then a shadow crosses the field. Only a shadow. No source appears. No threat reveals itself. Yet the wheat bends beneath its passage. When he awakens, unease lingers. Not fear. Not yet. Merely awareness. A reminder that prosperity requires vigilance. The following months bring even greater success. Harvests flourish. The climate remains mild. Conflicts remain rare. The golden age reaches its height. And still Cronus strives to remain connected to the world he governs. You watch him walking among ordinary people, listening to fishermen describe changing tides, listening to farmers discuss growing seasons, listening to children invent stories beside evening fires. These moments matter, because they reveal the version of Cronus that later myths sometimes overlook. Not the tyrant, not the fearful father, not the defeated titan. The ruler genuinely trying to create a better world. The tragedy of his life becomes more powerful because this version existed first. Without goodness, corruption carries less weight. Without hope, loss feels smaller. And there is real goodness here, real hope. As the years pass, humanity begins viewing this era as normal. Peace becomes expected. Abundance becomes familiar. Few realize how fragile such blessings can be. Perhaps that is always the way. People rarely recognize paradise while living inside it, only after it disappears. One night, standing alone beside the sea, Cronus watches moonlight shimmer across calm waters. The horizon glows silver. Stars scatter across the heavens. Everything feels balanced, complete. For a moment, he allows himself to believe the struggle is finished. The old wounds have healed. The future is secure. The prophecy belongs to the past. Yet far beyond the reach of moonlight, destiny continues its silent work, because another force is about to enter his life. A relationship that will bring joy, companionship, and eventually profound sorrow. And with that relationship, the next chapter of his story will begin. For somewhere beneath the same stars, Rhea is already walking toward her future. There are moments when destiny arrives quietly, not with thunder, not with prophecy, not with war, simply with a meeting, a conversation, a glance beneath the evening stars. You find yourself walking through a broad valley, washed in golden sunlight. Wildflowers sway in the breeze. Bees drift lazily among blossoms. Faraway rivers shine like silver ribbons, crossing the land. The world remains deep within the golden age. Peace continues to flourish. The wounds left by the reign of Uranus seem increasingly distant. And yet unknown to most, another transformation is approaching. Not political, not cosmic, personal. For even rulers need companionship. Even kings grow lonely. And though Cronus rarely admits it, loneliness has followed him for many years. Power often creates distance. The Titans respect him. Many admire him. Some even love him. But respect is not the same as understanding. A throne can elevate a ruler above others. It can also isolate him. You notice it during long evenings when celebrations end, when sacred fires burn low, when conversations fade into silence. Cronus often remains awake long after others sleep, watching the stars, thinking, wondering, perhaps remembering. The burden of leadership never fully disappears, even during peace, perhaps especially during peace, because peace leaves room for reflection, and reflection often reveals emptiness. Then Rhea enters his life. Ancient sources describe her as one of the Titan daughters, a being associated with motherhood, fertility, and the flowing rhythms of life. Yet those descriptions alone fail to capture her presence. To understand Rhea, you must imagine movement, warmth, vitality. Where Cronus often feels thoughtful and restrained, Rhea possesses a quieter confidence. She understands growth, renewal, the patient unfolding of life. The first meeting appears differently across traditions. Some myths offer few detail, others embellish the story with poetic imagery. The exact circumstances may never be known, but surviving memories agree upon one thing. Their connection became profound. You encounter them together during a gathering among titans. The setting sun paints the sky with shades of amber and rose. Music drifts through the evening air. Laughter echoes across open fields. The scent of roasted grain and sweet fruit lingers near the fires. At first, their conversation appears ordinary. Simple observations, shared thoughts, gentle curiosity. Yet something unusual happens. Cronus relaxes, truly relaxes, perhaps for the first time in many years. Around Rhea, he does not need to be king every moment. He does not need to solve every problem. He does not need to carry every burden alone. The realization feels unexpectedly comforting. Days become weeks, weeks become months. Their bond deepens naturally. You walk beside them through olive groves silvered by moonlight, along rivers reflecting starlight, across hills touched by cool evening winds. They speak of many things: the future, the world, the responsibilities of leadership, the mysteries of destiny. Unlike others, Rhea never seems intimidated by Cronus. She respects him, but she also challenges him, questions him, reminds him that wisdom requires humility. One evening, they sit beside a spring hidden among cypress trees. The water flows softly over smooth stone. Fireflies drift through the darkness. The atmosphere feels peaceful. Rhea studies the stars overhead. Then she asks a question. Do you ever regret it? Cronus immediately understands. She means Uranus, the rebellion, the overthrow, the choice that changed everything. For a long moment he remains silent. The spring continues singing beside them. Finally he answers. Sometimes. The honesty surprises even him. Most rulers hide uncertainty. Cronus does not. At least not with Rhea. I wonder whether another path existed. The admission hangs between them. Rhea considers it carefully. Then she smiles gently. The fact that you still wonder may be why you became a better ruler. The words remain with him, because they contain a truth he has never fully recognized. Certainty can become dangerous. Questioning oneself can become wisdom, and wisdom often grows through doubt. As the seasons pass, affection becomes love. The transformation feels natural, almost inevitable. Ancient audiences would have recognized the symbolism immediately. The king of the Golden Age joins with a goddess associated with life and renewal. Together they represent harmony, balance, the union of authority and nurture. Eventually they become partners, and for a time happiness feels remarkably complete. The world prospers. The Golden Age flourishes, and now Cronus has someone with whom he can share both triumph and fear. You watch them travel together across the growing world. People celebrate their presence. Villages welcome them warmly. Songs are composed in their honor. The future appears bright, perhaps brighter than ever. Yet myths rarely allow happiness to exist without shadow. One night a strange dream comes to Cronus, more vivid than any before. He stands beside a magnificent tree. Its branches stretch across the heavens. Its roots reach deep into the earth. Golden fruit hangs from every limb. The tree appears healthy. Perfect. Then he notices something. A single fruit falls. It strikes the ground, and where it lands, another tree begins growing. Smaller at first, but growing rapidly. Soon it rises toward the sky, toward the original tree, toward its place. Cronus awakens before dawn. His heart feels unsettled. The dream carries no obvious threat, yet something about it disturbs him. A replacement, a successor, a younger tree reaching upward. The symbolism feels impossible to ignore. Ancient interpreters would likely have connected the image to generations, parents and children, inheritance, the passing of power. Though no children exist yet, the dream plants a seed within his thoughts. A small one, almost insignificant, but seeds have a way of growing. The following weeks bring additional signs. A hawk circles repeatedly above the royal gathering place. Lightning flashes across clear skies. An unfamiliar voice speaks his name during sleep, then vanishes before revealing more. None of these events appear alarming individually. Together, however, they create a pattern, a feeling. The sensation that destiny has resumed its movement. Slowly, patiently, unavoidably. Even Gaia notices. One afternoon, she watches her son and Rhea walking together through a flowering meadow. For a moment, her expression softens. Then concern appears. Brief, subtle, gone almost immediately. Yet you see it. The Earth Mother remembers prophecies better than anyone. She understands that peace rarely lasts forever, and she senses change approaching. Perhaps she cannot see its exact form. Perhaps no one can, but the feeling remains. The future is stirring. Meanwhile, Cronus and Rhea continue building their life together. They dream of a lasting dynasty, a stable world, a future free from the mistakes of previous generations. The dream feels sincere, beautiful, possible. And therein lies the tragedy. Because some of the most heartbreaking stories begin with hope. The stars turn slowly above the sleeping world. Sacred fires flicker beside distant villages. The scent of olive wood drifts through the night air. And beside him, Rhea sleeps peacefully. For now, Cronus allows himself to believe the future belongs to them. Yet somewhere beyond dreams, beyond mountains, beyond the reach of even Titan's sight, an old prophecy waits. Silent, patient, preparing to return. And when it does, it will test every part of the man who once dreamed of creating a perfect age. Some fears arrive like storms. You see them gathering on the horizon. You hear distant thunder. You have time to prepare. Other fears arrive quietly. They wait in silence, hidden, patient, and by the time you recognize them, they have already entered your heart. You stand beside Cronus upon a marble terrace overlooking the sea. Evening sunlight glows across calm waters. Fishing boats drift toward distant harbors. Seabirds circle above the waves. The world still flourishes. The golden age continues. Fields remain fertile. Forests remain abundant. The songs of mortals still rise into the warm evening air. From every visible measure, the reign of Cronus appears successful. Yet success often creates new vulnerabilities. The more beautiful a thing becomes, the more one fears losing it. And lately, fear has begun visiting Cronus more frequently. Not openly, not constantly, just enough to linger, like a shadow appearing at the edge of sight, like a memory refusing to fade. The memory of Uranus, the memory of prophecy, the memory of a father overthrown by his own son. For years, those thoughts remain distant, easy to ignore. Now they have begun returning, and each return feels slightly stronger, slightly clearer. One night, while traveling through sacred highlands, Cronus encounters a gathering of ancient seers. Such figures appear throughout Greek mythology. They dwell near springs, caves, and holy places. They interpret dreams, observe omens, listen for messages hidden within the world itself. Whether their visions reveal true destiny remains uncertain. Ancient people debated that question just as modern people do. Yet rulers rarely ignore prophecy entirely, especially rulers carrying old fears. The seers welcome Cronus respectfully. The air smells of cedar smoke and mountain herbs. Torches flicker against nearby stone. Above them, thousands of stars burn across the heavens. The atmosphere feels calm, almost ceremonial. At first, the conversations remain ordinary. The harvests, the weather, the prosperity of the realm. Then one of the oldest seers grows quiet, very quiet. The others notice immediately. So does Cronus. The old woman stares toward the sky. Her eyes seem fixed upon something invisible. A long silence follows. Eventually she speaks, not loudly, barely above a whisper. The wheel turns again. The words mean little on their own, yet something about them unsettles everyone present, especially Cronus. The woman continues. That which happened before will happen again. The fire crackles. A cold breeze passes through the gathering. No one speaks. Then she lowers her gaze and looks directly at him. The son follows the father. The words strike with extraordinary force because they awaken a memory. Not merely a memory, a wound. The ancient warning spoken after Uranus fell. The prophecy that has never fully disappeared. The son follows the father. For a moment, the world feels strangely distant. The stars blur. The voices fade. Only the words remain. The son follows the father. Later traditions preserve several versions of this prophecy. Details vary. Certain accounts claim Gaia delivered it. Others credit Uranus. Still others describe mysterious prophetic powers revealing it. The exact source matters less than the effect. Every version reaches the same conclusion. One day a child of Cronus will overthrow him. The same pattern will repeat. The same fate will return. The same cycle will continue. The revelation follows him home. You walk beside him through moonlit valleys. The scent of pine drifts through the cool air. The stars shine peacefully overhead. Yet peace feels distant now. For the first time in many years, genuine fear begins taking root. Not fear of enemies, not fear of war, fear of destiny, Fear of inevitability. Fear of becoming Uranus. The irony is painful. Cronus once rebelled against a ruler consumed by fear. Now he finds himself confronting similar emotions. At first he resists them. He tells himself the prophecy means nothing. The future remains unwritten. No child exists yet. Nothing has happened. Nothing may ever happen. The arguments seem reasonable, yet fear rarely obeys reason. Days pass, then weeks. The unease remains. One evening he confides in Rhea. They sit beside a cliff overlooking the sea. Moonlight dances across the water below. The wind carries the scent of salt and flowering herbs. For a long time neither speaks. Finally Cronus tells her everything. The warning, the prophecy, the growing fear. Rhea listens patiently. When he finishes, silence settles between them. Then she gently takes his hand. Your father feared his children before they had done anything wrong. Her voice remains calm. You are not your father. The statement carries immense comfort and immense danger, because it is exactly what Cronus wants to believe. For a moment the fear retreats. The future feels manageable again. Perhaps the prophecy can be ignored. Perhaps destiny can be avoided. Perhaps wisdom will accomplish what power never could. Yet even as hope returns, another part of him remains uncertain. What if the prophecy is true? What if kindness changes nothing? What if fate cannot be escaped? These questions continue multiplying, and questions when fed by fear often become obsessions. The first unmistakable omen arrives several months later. Rhea announces that she is expecting a child. The news spreads quickly. Celebrations erupt throughout the realm. Songs are sung. Offerings are made. The future appears bright. A royal child means continuity, a new generation, a lasting dynasty. Everyone rejoices. Everyone except Cronus, at least privately, because the prophecy immediately returns, stronger than ever, no longer abstract, no longer distant. Now it possesses a face he cannot yet see, a future child, a future heir, a future threat. The contradiction tears at him. Part of him feels genuine happiness. He loves Rhea. He dreams of a family. He wants to build something enduring. Another part feels terrified, because the arrival of a child transforms prophecy into possibility, and possibility into something far more difficult to dismiss. The following nights bring troubling dreams. In one vision he stands within a vast palace of gold. A child approaches, small, harmless, smiling. Cronus kneels to embrace the child. Then the palace walls begin cracking. The floor trembles. The throne shatters. He awakens before the dream reaches its conclusion. The image remains, again and again, night after night. Ancient audiences often viewed repeated dreams as significant warnings, messages from destiny refusing to be ignored. Whether literal or symbolic, they possess power, and these dreams are changing him. Subtly at first, then more noticeably. You begin observing moments that would once have seemed impossible. He watches Rhea's growing pregnancy with unease. He studies omens more carefully. He seeks reassurance from signs, from priests, from sacred places, from anyone capable of easing his fear. Yet nothing helps, because fear born from prophecy rarely seeks truth. It seeks certainty, and certainty remains unavailable. One afternoon, Gaia visits. The Earth Mother immediately senses the tension. The air itself feels different. The warmth once surrounding her son has diminished. A hardness has begun forming beneath the surface. Not cruelty, not yet. Something more fragile, anxiety. Gaia watches him silently, and perhaps for the first time, she realizes that the old warning may become more dangerous than the future it predicts. Because prophecies do not merely reveal destiny, sometimes they shape it. The sun slowly sets. The sky turns crimson. Shadows stretch across the world, and within those shadows fear continues growing. Small, hidden, persistent. The first child has not yet arrived. No tragedy has occurred. No betrayal has taken place. The golden age still shines brightly across the earth. Yet a crack has appeared within the heart of its king. A tiny crack, almost invisible. But once formed, such cracks rarely heal on their own. And soon, very soon, a child named Hestia will enter the world. When she does, Cronus will face the most important choice of his life. A choice between love and fear. A choice that will determine the fate of gods and mortals alike. Yet the consequences of that choice remain hidden beyond the horizon. For now. The night is unusually still. No wind moves through the olive trees. No waves crash loudly against the distant shore. Even the stars seem to watch in silence. You stand beside Cronus, outside a sacred chamber, illuminated by torchlight. The scent of burning cedar drifts through the warm air. Priests move quietly between stone columns. Somewhere beyond the doorway, voices murmur softly. Tonight, a child is being born. For many rulers, such a moment represents fulfillment. A future secured, a family continued, a dream made real. For Cronus, it feels like standing before a crossroads, because beyond the joy waits a prophecy, the same prophecy that has haunted his thoughts for months, the same warning spoken by seers, the same fear inherited from the fall of Uranus. The son follows the father. The cycle repeats. The child overthrows the parent, again and again and again. Yet as he waits outside the chamber, another feeling struggles against the fear. Love. Simple. Human. Unexpectedly powerful. The child is not a threat. Not yet. The child is his child. That distinction matters. More than he realizes. Hours pass. Torches burn lower. The moon climbs higher above the sea. Then at last the doors open. A priest emerges smiling. The news spreads immediately. A daughter has been born. Hestia, future goddess of the hearth, future guardian of sacred fire, future symbol of home and family, though no one knows these things yet. For now, she is simply a newborn child wrapped in soft cloth. Tiny, fragile, perfect. You follow Cronus as he enters the chamber. The atmosphere feels warm and peaceful. Lamps flicker gently along stone walls. The scent of olive oil fills the air. Rhea rests upon a couch covered with woven blankets. Exhausted, happy, radiant, and in her arms lies Hestia. For a moment, everything else disappears. The prophecy, the fears, the warnings, all of it fades. Cronus gazes at his daughter. The child opens her eyes briefly. Small fingers curl around nothing. A tiny breath escapes her lips. The sight affects him more deeply than expected. Ancient myths often focus on grand events, wars, prophecies, divine conflicts. Yet moments like this reveal character more clearly than any battle. Because for the first time, Cronus understands what it means to love someone whose existence matters more than power, more than victory, more than reputation. The feeling surprises him. Rhea notices immediately. She smiles. The tension that has troubled him for months seems absent, gone, at least temporarily. She places Hestia gently into his arms. The king of the Titans suddenly appears uncertain, almost nervous. The contrast feels striking. This is the being who overthrew heaven, yet now he moves with extraordinary care, afraid to hold a newborn too tightly, afraid to cause harm. The image would have seemed impossible only a few years earlier. For several hours, peace reigns. The family remains together. The future appears bright, and somewhere deep within himself, Cronus begins believing that perhaps the prophecy can be overcome. Perhaps love changes things. Perhaps destiny is not absolute. Perhaps this child represents hope rather than danger. The possibility feels wonderful. Unfortunately, fear rarely surrenders so easily. The following days begin well. Celebrations spread throughout the world. Sacred fires burn late into the night. Songs echo across villages and valleys. Offerings fill temples and shrines. The birth of the royal child becomes a source of joy for countless beings. You travel beside Cronus through these celebrations. People greet him warmly. Children scatter flower petals before him. The atmosphere feels almost magical, yet subtle changes are already beginning. One evening he dreams. He stands beside a hearth. A bright sacred fire burns steadily. Its warmth feels comforting, safe. Then the flames suddenly grow, higher, stronger, until they fill the entire room. The fire becomes impossible to control, impossible to contain. He awakens before dawn. Sweat covers his skin. The dream lingers, not because it was terrifying, because it felt symbolic. Ancient interpreters would likely have connected the hearth fire with Hestia herself. The association feels natural, yet what exactly the dream means remains unclear. A blessing, a warning, a prophecy. No answer arrives, only uncertainty, and uncertainty feeds fear. As days become weeks, Cronus notices something troubling. Whenever he looks at Hestia, two competing thoughts emerge. The first is love. The second is prophecy. The two become inseparable. That is the true danger. Not hatred, not cruelty, association. His mind begins linking the child to the warning, again and again. Even though she has done nothing, even though she is innocent, the pattern grows stronger. One afternoon he confides in Gaia. The Earth Mother listens carefully. The scent of pine surrounds them. Mountain winds move gently through nearby trees. Cronus describes his fears honestly. The dreams, the anxiety, the prophecy. When he finishes, Gaia remains silent for a long time. Then she asks a question. Do you fear your daughter? The simplicity of the question wounds him, because the answer should be obvious. Number. Of course not. Yet the hesitation before answering reveals everything. Gaia sees it immediately. Her expression fills with sadness. Not judgment, sadness, as though she recognizes a familiar tragedy unfolding. You are allowing tomorrow to poison today. The words strike deeply. For a moment, Cronus almost listens, almost understands, almost lets go, but fear has already rooted itself too deeply. That night, another omen appears. A great eagle circles above the palace repeatedly, 3 times, then vanishes into storm clouds gathering beyond the horizon. To most observers, the event means little. To Cronus, it means everything. Fear transforms ordinary events into signs. Coincidences become warnings. Shadows become threats. The mind begins searching for confirmation, and inevitably finds it. Days later, while holding Hestia, he notices something remarkable. The child looks directly into his eyes. Not randomly, not briefly. The gaze seems strangely focused, ancient, knowing. The moment lasts only seconds, yet it unsettles him profoundly. Reason tells him she is merely an infant. Emotion tells another story. The prophecy speaks through every uncertainty, every coincidence, every dream. Gradually, the balance begins shifting. Love remains present, very much present, but fear grows larger, stronger, more persuasive. The tragedy is not that Cronus stops loving his child. The tragedy is that he begins fearing her more than he trusts his love. That distinction matters, because it explains everything that follows. One evening alone beneath the stars, he recalls the final moments of Uranus. The warning, the curse, the promise. One day your child will do the same. The memory feels vivid, fresh, alive. He gazes upward. The heavens appear calm, beautiful, untroubled, just as they once appeared under Uranus. Suddenly he understands something terrifying. His father probably felt afraid too, not justified, not wise, afraid. The realization should serve as a warning. Instead, it becomes justification. If Uranus feared correctly, perhaps caution is necessary. If prophecy proved true once, perhaps it will prove true again. The logic seems convincing. Fear often is. And so slowly, almost imperceptibly, the first crack widens. The king who built the Golden Age begins drifting toward a different path. A darker path, one paved with desperate choices. The child sleeps peacefully. Rhea dreams of a bright future. The world continues celebrating. No one realizes how close they stand to catastrophe. Yet destiny is already moving, and soon another child will be born. Then another. And with each birth, the struggle between love and fear will become harder to win, harder to resist, until eventually Cronus will make a choice that echoes through mythology forever. But that terrible moment has not yet arrived. Not quite. The first terrible choice does not arrive all at once. It grows, quietly, patiently, like a shadow lengthening across a sunlit field. You stand beside Cronus as autumn settles gently across the world. Golden leaves drift through the air. Harvests fill granaries. Villages celebrate another year of abundance beneath his rule. To everyone watching from the outside, the Golden Age remains untouched. Peace continues. The earth remains generous. The people remain content. Yet beneath the surface, something is changing. Not in the world. In the king. The birth of Hestia should have strengthened his confidence. Instead, it has intensified his fears. Every smile from his daughter brings warmth. Every reminder of the prophecy brings dread. The two emotions have become inseparable, and every day the tension grows more exhausting. Rhea notices it first. Of course she does. Love often sees changes before anyone else. She notices how frequently Cronus stares into the distance, how often he wakes during the night, how his attention drifts during conversations. Most of all, she notices how often his thoughts return to the future. Not tomorrow, years from now, decades from now, generations from now. The future has become an obsession. An obsession rarely leaves room for peace. One evening, they walk together beside a river glowing beneath moonlight. The water moves softly around smooth stones. Frogs sing from nearby reeds. The scent of damp earth fills the cool night air. For a long time, they walk in silence. Then Rhea speaks. "You are still afraid." The statement is gentle, not accusatory, not angry, simply honest. Cronus sighs. There is little point denying it. Some days I think the fear has passed. He watches the moon reflected in the water. Then it returns. Rhea studies him carefully. What exactly are you afraid of? The answer should be simple, yet it is not. Because fear changes shape. Sometimes he fears losing power. Sometimes he fears losing the world he built. Sometimes he fears becoming his father. Sometimes he fears fate itself. Eventually he says something closer to the truth. I am afraid that no matter what I choose, destiny has already chosen for me. The words hang in the night air. Rhea does not answer immediately. Instead, she kneels beside the river and places one hand into the flowing water. Look at this river. Cronus watches. The water follows a path, she says. But it still bends around stones. It still chooses its course. The lesson feels clear. Fate may guide. Choice still matters. For a moment the fear retreats, but only for a moment, because shortly afterward another child is born. Demeter, the future goddess of harvests, warm-hearted, generous, beloved by mortals yet unborn. Her arrival should bring joy, and at first it does. Cronus loves her immediately, just as he loved Hestia. Yet the prophecy remains, the warning remains, and now there are two children, two possible futures, two potential threats. The arithmetic of fear has begun. Ancient myths rarely portray fear as rational. Fear counts possibilities differently than wisdom. Where wisdom sees children, fear sees outcomes. Where wisdom sees love, fear sees vulnerability. The difference becomes increasingly important. The months that follow bring strange dreams. One night, Cronus sees himself standing within a great hall filled with mirrors. Each mirror reflects a different future. In some visions, his children embrace him. In others, they overthrow him. Some futures show peace. Others show ruin. He moves desperately from mirror to mirror, seeking certainty. Yet every reflection changes before he can understand it. When he awakens, frustration lingers. The dream feels cruel, a reminder that certainty remains impossible. Another interpretation survives among some later storytellers. They suggested the mirrors represented choice itself, not fixed destiny, possibility. If so, the dream offers wisdom. Unfortunately, fear rarely seeks wisdom. It seeks guarantees, and guarantees do not exist. The birth of a third child follows. Hera, future queen of Olympus, future goddess of marriage, future partner of Zeus. Though those identities remain far beyond the horizon. For now she is simply another daughter, another innocent child, another beloved member of the family. Yet each birth deepens Cronus's anxiety, not because the children behave threateningly. They are infants, completely harmless. The fear exists entirely within him. That is what makes it so dangerous. The threat comes not from reality, but from imagination. You begin noticing changes in his behavior, subtle at first, then increasingly difficult to ignore. He spends more time consulting omens, more time interpreting dreams, more time questioning signs. A bird changes direction during flight. He notices. A storm arrives unexpectedly. He notices. A sacred flame flickers strangely. He notices. Everything becomes evidence. Everything becomes a possible warning. Ancient rulers often sought guidance from signs and prophecies. That alone is not unusual. What matters is balance. Wisdom weighs omens carefully. Fear collects them endlessly. Cronus is slowly crossing that line. One afternoon, he visits a shrine perched high above the sea. The location feels ancient, sacred. Wind rushes across the cliffs below. Waves crash against distant rocks. There he meets a solitary priest, known for interpreting dreams. The old man listens patiently as Cronus describes his visions. The mirrors, the falling shadows, the growing unease. When the story ends, the priest remains silent for a long time. Then he says something unexpected. The future may be dangerous. Cronus leans forward. At last, a confirmation, a warning, proof. But the priest continues, so is fear. The words disappoint him. Because they offer no certainty, only complexity, only ambiguity, only another reminder that wisdom rarely speaks in absolutes. As the years pass, more children arrive. Hades, Poseidon. Each birth strengthens the same internal struggle. Each child becomes another reminder of the prophecy, another possible future, another imagined threat. The tragedy grows heavier because love remains present. Cronus does not hate his children, not at all. He watches them sleep, listens to their laughter, feels genuine affection. Yet love and fear now occupy the same space within him. And increasingly fear demands greater attention. One night a storm rolls across the heavens. Thunder shakes the mountains. Lightning illuminates the sea. You stand beside Cronus on a balcony overlooking the dark world below. The rain feels cold against your skin. For hours he watches the storm, thinking, remembering. Then a memory returns with unusual clarity. The final warning of Uranus. One day your child will do the same. The words no longer feel distant. The children are real now. The family is real. The risk feels real. and for the first time a terrible possibility enters his mind. Not a plan, not yet. Merely a possibility, a way to prevent the prophecy, a way to guarantee safety, a way to ensure that the future never arrives. The thought horrifies him. Immediately, instinctively, yet once imagined it cannot be forgotten. That is the danger of desperate solutions. They often appear before necessity exists, and once seen they linger. The storm eventually passes. The clouds drift away. Stars return to the heavens. The world grows quiet again. But inside the king the storm remains. Because fear has now moved beyond anxiety, beyond uncertainty. It has begun searching for action, searching for control, searching for escape. And soon, when another child enters the world, Cronus will face a choice from which there can be no return. A choice that will shatter his family. A choice that will transform him forever. Yet he does not know that fully. Not yet. For now he remains a father, standing beneath a peaceful sky, desperately trying to protect everything he loves, without realizing that his greatest threat is no longer prophecy. It is the fear growing inside his own heart. There are wounds that arrive suddenly. A sword strike, a storm, a betrayal. And then there are wounds that deepen slowly. So slowly that no one notices until they have become part of everyday life. You stand beside Rhea beneath a sky filled with stars. The night air is cool. The scent of olive wood drifts from distant hearths. Far below, waves whisper against the shoreline. The golden age continues. Villages remain prosperous. Harvests remain abundant. Children laugh beside sacred fires. To most of the world, nothing appears wrong. Yet within the household of Cronus, sorrow has begun gathering like mist before dawn. The change is difficult to describe, because it is not yet visible. Not completely. It exists in pauses, in silences, in conversations that never reach their conclusion. Most of all, it exists in the growing distance between husband and wife. Rhea feels it first. She watches Cronus spend longer hours alone. She watches him stare toward horizons no one else can see. She watches him study omens with increasing urgency. And beneath all these changes, she recognizes a truth she desperately wishes were false. The prophecy is winning, not over the future, over him. One evening, she finds him standing alone beside a cliff overlooking the sea. The moon paints silver pathways across the water. The wind pulls gently at his cloak. For a moment, he seems unaware of her presence, lost within his own thoughts. When he finally notices her, he smiles. But the smile feels tired, a shadow of what it once was. "You should be resting," Rhea says softly. "So should you." Neither moves, neither leaves. The silence between them carries years of shared memories. The rebellion against Uranus, the birth of the Golden Age, long walks beneath starlight, dreams of a better future. All those memories remain, yet something has changed. Not love. Love still exists. The problem is fear. Fear has become another presence in the relationship, a third companion walking beside them, invisible, persistent, and impossible to ignore. Rhea eventually speaks the question that has haunted her for months. "When you look at our children, what do you see?" The words strike deeply. Cronus knows why, because he is no longer certain of the answer. Once he would have answered immediately. He would have spoken of family, hope, the future. Now the response comes slowly, too slowly, and both of them notice. "I see everything I want to protect." The answer is honest, yet incomplete. Rhea hears what remains unspoken. She hears the second answer hidden beneath the first. Threat, risk, prophecy. The realization breaks something inside her. Not dramatically, not visibly, quietly, like a thread snapping in darkness. That night she lies awake, listening to the distant sounds of the sea. Cronus sleeps beside her, restless even in dreams. The moonlight spilling through the chamber windows feels pale and cold. And for the first time, Rhea experiences a terrifying thought. What if the prophecy never harms their family? What if fear does? The possibility lingers. Days later, another child is born. Hades. Dark-haired and solemn even as an infant. Future ruler of the underworld. Future guardian of the dead. Though none of those destinies are visible yet. For now, he is simply a child. A son. And the birth of a son changes everything. The prophecy specifically spoke of a child overthrowing his father. Now that child could exist, or perhaps another will. No one knows. That uncertainty becomes unbearable. You watch Cronus hold the infant. His expression reveals love. Real love. Yet something else is present. Calculation, concern, fear. The three emotions mingle together until even he struggles to separate them. Rhea notices. Every mother notices. And her grief deepens. because she understands something that others do not. The prophecy does not need to come true to destroy them. Its influence is already doing that. The following months become increasingly difficult. Another son arrives. Poseidon, strong, energetic, full of life. The family grows larger. The palace fills with children's voices. Laughter echoes through halls and gardens. The scene should feel joyful, and sometimes it does. There are moments when everything seems normal. Moments when Cronus plays with the children. Moments when he smiles genuinely. Moments when fear appears absent. Those moments make the tragedy worse, because they reveal what could have been, what still might be, if only he could let go. But fear rarely releases its grip voluntarily. One afternoon, while the children sleep nearby, Gaia visits Rhea. The Earth Mother immediately senses the sorrow. Ancient beings often recognize pain because they have carried so much of it themselves. The two sit beneath a grove of cypress trees. A gentle breeze stirs the branches overhead. Birdsong drifts through the warm afternoon air. For a long time, neither speaks. Eventually, Rhea asks the question she has avoided. Can fate be escaped? Gaia studies the ground before answering. Sometimes. The response offers little comfort. Rhea notices. Gaia continues. The harder question is whether fear can. Those words remain with her, because they feel closer to the truth. The future remains uncertain. Fear is already present. Fear is already shaping decisions. Fear is already changing lives. As seasons pass, strange signs continue appearing. One evening, a flock of birds suddenly abandons a grove where they have nested for years. Another night, a sacred flame burns blue instead of gold. A third omen arrives through dreams. Rhea dreams of standing beside a river flowing peacefully toward the sea. Then she notices that the water is disappearing underground. Not violently, quietly, a little at a time. When she awakens, the symbolism feels obvious. Something precious is slipping away. Something essential. Something difficult to recover. Ancient listeners would likely have recognized the image as well. Not every loss arrives dramatically. Many disappear slowly enough that people mistake them for change. Meanwhile, the children continue growing. Hestia learns to walk. Demeter laughs easily. Hera observes everything with sharp eyes. Hades watches silently. Poseidon rushes fearlessly toward every new experience. They are remarkable, beautiful, alive, and each passing year makes Cronus's fear harder to justify. Yet paradoxically, it also makes the fear stronger. Because now there is more to lose, more to protect, more to fear. That is the trap. The more deeply he loves them, the more vulnerable he feels. The more vulnerable he feels, the more desperately he seeks control. And control, when pursued too aggressively, often destroys the very things it hopes to preserve. One night, another dream arrives. This time it comes to Cronus. He stands inside a magnificent palace built entirely from crystal. Every wall shines. Every tower gleams. The structure appears perfect. Then he notices a single crack. Tiny, almost invisible. He places one hand against it. The crack immediately spreads throughout the palace. When he awakens, terror follows. Because deep inside he understands what the dream means. The threat no longer feels distant. The threat feels immediate. The threat feels personal. And for the first time, the terrible possibility he once rejected begins transforming into something else. Not merely an idea, a solution. A desperate solution. The stars continue their silent journey across the heavens. The golden age still flourishes. The world remains peaceful. Yet inside the royal family, another story is unfolding. A quieter story, a sadder one. A story of fear slowly overwhelming trust. And somewhere beyond the horizon, another child waits to be born. A child whose arrival will force every hidden tension into the open. A child whose destiny is already moving toward the center of the world. But for now, Rhea sits alone beneath the stars, listening to the distant sea, grieving a future that has not yet happened, and fearing a choice that soon may. Some nights seem suspended between two worlds. One world belongs to the past, the other waits in the future, and in between stands a single choice. You feel it now as you walk beside Rhea, through corridors illuminated by flickering torchlight. The palace is quiet. Most have already fallen asleep. Beyond the windows, moonlight washes across gardens and distant hills. The air feels heavy, expectant, as though the world itself is holding its breath. Years have passed since the birth of Hestia. The children continue growing. The golden age still shines across the earth. Yet within the royal family, the shadow of prophecy has grown darker. Cronus loves his children. That truth has never disappeared. But fear has become stronger than love, stronger than trust, stronger than reason. The terrible choice he once resisted now defines his life. Ancient myths preserve the outcome with shocking simplicity. Each time a child is born, Cronus takes the infant and swallows them. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, one after another. The act horrifies later generations. It horrified many ancient listeners as well. Yet myths often speak through symbolism as much as events. Some scholars believe the story reflects time consuming all things. Others see a metaphor for power destroying its own future. Another interpretation survives among later traditions. A ruler becomes so afraid of losing control that he destroys the very legacy he hopes to preserve. Whatever meaning one prefers, the emotional reality remains devastating. Rhea experiences each loss differently. The first leaves her shocked. The second leaves her grieving. The third leaves her angry. By the fourth and fifth, something else emerges. Resolve. The quiet, determined resolve of someone who can no longer endure suffering without action. You sit beside her one evening beneath a grove of olive trees. The scent of leaves and earth fills the cool air. Moonlight filters through the branches. The world remains peaceful around her. Yet peace feels distant. Because her children are gone. Not dead. Not exactly. But trapped within Cronus himself. Hidden from the world. Hidden from her. The grief never fully fades. Ancient storytellers often focused on the fear of Cronus. Less often do they dwell upon Rhea's sorrow. Yet her sorrow drives the next great turning point. Without it, the future would unfold very differently. One night Gaia visits. The Earth Mother arrives quietly. No ceremony, no announcement, simply presence. Rhea immediately understands why. The time has come. Another child is growing within her. The sixth child. The final child. And both women know the prophecy still hangs over everything. They walk together beneath the stars. The sea wind carries the scent of salt and distant flowers. For a long time, neither speaks. Then Gaia finally breaks the silence. You do not have to surrender this one. The words feel almost unreal. Hope can be difficult to recognize after prolonged sorrow. Rhea stops walking. For several moments, she cannot answer. Then slowly she turns toward her mother. What are you asking me to do? Gaia's eyes reflect moonlight. And something else. Determination. The cycle must end. The words carry tremendous weight. Because that is exactly what the prophecy represents. A cycle. Uranus feared his children. Cronus feared his children. Fear passed from one generation to the next like an inherited wound. Unless someone intervenes, the pattern will continue forever. Gaia understands this. Perhaps Rhea does too. Together they begin forming a plan. A dangerous plan. A desperate plan. Yet sometimes desperation creates courage. As the months pass, preparations continue quietly. Secrecy becomes essential. Cronus watches for signs constantly. His anxiety has reached extraordinary levels. Any unusual behavior attracts attention. Any unexplained absence invites suspicion. The deception must be flawless. You travel with Rhea through remote regions far from the centers of power, across mountains wrapped in mist, along hidden pathways known only to ancient spirits, toward an island rising from the sea. Crete. Beautiful, wild, remote. The island seems touched by mystery. Steep cliffs overlook brilliant waters. Forests cover rugged hills. Hidden caves lie scattered throughout the landscape. Even today, surviving archaeological discoveries reveal how important Crete became within ancient mythology. Some researchers believe these traditions preserve memories of older religious practices once flourishing there. Whether true or not, the island occupies a special place within the mythic imagination. And now it will become a refuge. The night of the birth finally arrives. Storm clouds gather above the sea. Waves crash against rocky shores. Wind rushes through narrow valleys. The atmosphere feels charged with destiny. Deep within a hidden cave, Rhea gives birth. Torches cast golden light across stone walls. The scent of herbs fills the air. Outside, thunder echoes across the island. Then the child arrives. A son. Zeus, future king of Olympus, future ruler of gods and mortals, future fulfillment of prophecy. Yet none of those identities are visible now. He is only a newborn, small, fragile, dependent. The contrast feels extraordinary. How can such a tiny child carry the weight of destiny? How can something so vulnerable reshape the cosmos? Yet myths repeatedly remind us of this truth. Great transformations often begin in weakness, not strength. Rhea holds her son close. For a long time, she simply watches him breathe. The moment feels precious, because she knows what must happen next. To save him, she must leave him. Ancient stories understand this paradox well. Love sometimes demands separation. Sacrifice sometimes appears cruel. The cave grows quiet. Outside, the storm begins fading. And within that silence, Rhea entrusts the child to guardians. Different traditions preserve different details. Some speak of nymphs, others describe divine caretakers. Many mention the goat Amalthea, whose nourishment helps sustain the infant god. Certain stories tell of armed dancers called the Curates, who clash their weapons together whenever Zeus cries, hiding his voice from Cronus. Historians continue debating how these traditions developed, yet all versions share the same purpose: protection. The future king must survive. Before dawn, the final stage of the plan begins. Rhea wraps a large stone in cloth. Carefully, convincingly, the bundle resembles a newborn child, at least from a distance, at least long enough. Then she returns to Cronus. You can almost feel her heart pounding. The deception carries enormous risk. Failure means disaster. Success means hope. Cronus receives the bundle. Years of fear have trained him well, or perhaps badly. He does not question, does not hesitate, does not inspect closely. The prophecy overwhelms everything else, and so the stone disappears. The deception succeeds. For the first time in years, one of Rhea's children remains free. Far away on Crete, the infant Zeus sleeps peacefully beneath the protection of hidden guardians, unaware of prophecies, unaware of destiny, unaware that the future of the cosmos now rests upon his survival. Meanwhile, Cronus believes himself safe. The danger appears gone. The prophecy appears defeated. For the first time in many years, genuine relief enters his life. The irony feels almost unbearable, because the very act intended to prevent fate has ensured its fulfillment. Ancient myths return to this lesson again and again. The harder one struggles against destiny, the more one may help create it. Yet no one fully understands that truth yet. Not Cronus, not even Rhea. Only the audience standing between past and future can glimpse the pattern forming. The stars shine above the island of Crete. Waves roll gently against moonlit shores. And hidden within a cave, a child sleeps. Small, silent, forgotten by the world, but not by fate. For destiny has finally found the path it was seeking. And somewhere beyond the sea, the king of the Titans sleeps peacefully, for the first time in years, unaware that the greatest threat to his reign is already alive, already growing, already waiting. The years pass more quickly than anyone expects. The sea continues its endless rhythm. The stars continue crossing the heavens. The seasons arrive and depart in perfect order. And beneath the reign of Cronus, the golden age still endures. Yet destiny is no longer waiting. It is growing. You stand upon the island of Crete as dawn spreads across the horizon. Golden light touches rugged cliffs. Waves shimmer below. The scent of wild thyme drifts through the cool morning air. Somewhere nearby, a young god is awakening. Zeus has survived. That simple fact changes everything. The child hidden within the cave has become a boy. The boy has become a young man. And the young man now carries a presence difficult to ignore. Ancient traditions describe his upbringing in many ways. Some tell of divine nurses. Others speak of protective spirits. Several traditions remember the Curates, whose clashing shields concealed the infant's cries from Cronus. The details vary. The meaning remains. The future king was protected, nurtured, prepared, not merely by individuals, by destiny itself. You watch Zeus running along mountain paths overlooking the sea. He moves with confidence, curiosity, energy. The world feels vast before him. Every cliff invites exploration. Every forest hides mystery. Every storm sparks fascination rather than fear. In many ways, he is the opposite of the man who fears him. Cronus looks toward the future and sees danger. Zeus looks toward the future and sees possibility. The contrast will define everything that follows. One evening, Zeus climbs a high peak overlooking the island. The sea stretches endlessly in every direction. The sky glows crimson beneath the setting sun. For a long time, he remains alone, listening, thinking. The wind rushes around him. Then something unusual happens. A great eagle appears overhead. Its wings catch the final light of day. The bird circles 3 times before disappearing into the western sky. Ancient listeners would immediately recognize the omen. The eagle often accompanies kingship, authority, divine favor. Whether the bird truly carries such meaning matters less than the effect. The image remains powerful. And soon stories about signs begin gathering around Zeus. The hidden child grows into a figure surrounded by expectation. Meanwhile, far away, Cronus believes the danger has passed. The years following the supposed birth of his final child bring a strange kind of peace. The prophecy no longer dominates every waking thought. The anxiety remains, but it has softened. The constant tension has eased. For the first time in many years, he begins believing he has succeeded, believing he has outwitted fate, believing the future belongs to him once again. You walk beside him through flourishing fields and prosperous settlements. The people continue celebrating the abundance of the Golden Age. Children laugh beside sacred fires. Farmers gather remarkable harvests. The world appears stable, complete, safe. And yet every moment of safety rests upon an illusion. The threat he fears most already exists. Not merely exists, thrives. The irony gives this chapter of the myth much of its emotional power. Because Cronus is not evil in the simple sense. He genuinely believes he is protecting everything he loves. The world, his reign, his family, even himself. Yet each attempt at protection brings him closer to destruction. Many tragedies unfold this way, not through malice, through fear. Years later, Zeus finally learns the truth. Different traditions describe the revelation differently. Some suggest Gaia reveals it. Others credit Rhea. Certain stories imply he always suspected. Whatever version one prefers, the result remains the same. The hidden child discovers who he truly is. The realization transforms everything. Imagine the moment. You have spent your entire life believing one story. Then suddenly another emerges. Your father is not dead. Your family is not lost. And the ruler of the cosmos has spent years consuming your brothers and sisters out of fear. Such knowledge changes a person. Zeus does not react with immediate rage, at least not in most versions. Instead, he begins asking questions. Questions about justice. Questions about destiny. Questions about responsibility. The same questions that once troubled Cronus. The similarity is important, because the two figures are not complete opposites. Both care about the future. Both desire stability. Both struggle against fate. The difference lies in how they respond to fear. As Zeus matures, allies begin gathering around him. Some come willingly. Others are drawn by prophecy. Still others sense change approaching and choose their side early. Ancient myths often describe destiny this way, like a river attracting smaller streams. Events begin converging. People begin moving. The future begins assembling itself. One night, Zeus experiences a dream. He stands beside an immense oak tree. Its roots stretch deep into the earth. Its branches reach the stars. Beneath the tree sit 5 figures trapped within darkness. They call his name. Then a 6th voice joins them. A woman's voice, his mother's voice. When he awakens, the message feels unmistakable. His family is waiting. Whether the dream comes from prophecy, divine influence, or his own subconscious remains uncertain. The myths leave room for interpretation, but its effect cannot be denied. Action becomes inevitable. Soon plans begin forming. Careful plans. Dangerous plans, because confronting Cronus directly would be foolish. The Titan King remains enormously powerful. His authority still stretches across the cosmos. His allies remain numerous. His reputation remains formidable. A reckless challenge would accomplish nothing. Patience becomes essential. Meanwhile, signs begin appearing around Cronus once again. Small at first, easy to dismiss. A dream of a locked door opening by itself, a sacred flame suddenly burning green, an eagle seen repeatedly above the palace. None of these events prove anything, yet together they create an atmosphere, a feeling, the sensation that something approaches. The old anxiety returns, not fully, just enough to disturb his sleep. One evening he walks alone beside the sea. Moonlight shimmers across calm waters, the scent of salt fills the air. For a brief moment, he remembers the night Zeus was supposedly born. The wrapped bundle, the relief, the certainty. Suddenly the memory feels strange, incomplete, like a story missing a page. The sensation passes quickly, yet it lingers. A tiny crack in confidence, a whisper of doubt. Far away, Zeus continues preparing. The hidden child has become a young god. The young god is becoming a leader, and leadership, much like fear, grows gradually. You watch him standing among companions beneath a star-filled sky. The night air feels cool. Torches flicker softly around the gathering. Voices remain low, serious, focused. The time for hiding is ending. The time for action approaches. And perhaps most importantly, the time for consequences has arrived. Because every choice made by Cronus now returns. Every fear, every compromise, every desperate attempt to control the future. The consequences have spent years growing in secret. Now they are ready to emerge. The stars wheel silently above both father and son. One sleeps believing his reign secure. The other lies awake, planning its end. Neither can avoid what comes next. Because prophecy is no longer a distant possibility. It has become a living force moving through the world. And soon the king who once overthrew his own father will discover what it feels like to stand on the other side of fate. Yet even now, the final outcome remains uncertain. For destiny may guide the road, but the greatest battle in the history of the cosmos has not yet begun. The first signs of war do not sound like war. There are no marching armies, no battle horns, no walls collapsing into ruin. Instead, there is silence, a silence filled with realization. You stand beside Cronus within the great halls of his kingdom as dawn light filters through towering columns. The air feels cool. The scent of cedar wood lingers near sacred fires. Outside, the world appears peaceful, but peace is ending. After years hidden from sight, Zeus has returned, not as an infant, not as a frightened child, as a challenger, as a leader, as the living fulfillment of prophecy. The truth reaches Cronus gradually. Different traditions describe the revelation differently. Some tell of divine messengers. Others speak of confessions, omens, or carefully arranged confrontations. Yet every version arrives at the same destination. The child survived. The prophecy lives. The future he feared has arrived. You watch the realization move across his face. At first disbelief, then shock, then something deeper, recognition. Because in the same instant another truth becomes impossible to ignore. The years of fear accomplished nothing. Everything he sacrificed, everything he justified, everything he endured. None of it prevented destiny. The terrible irony settles heavily upon him. Had he trusted love instead of fear, perhaps this moment would feel different. Yet that path now belongs to imagination. Reality offers no return, only consequences. The first confrontation between father and son remains shrouded in mystery. Ancient traditions disagree about details. Some emphasize strategy. Others emphasize symbolism. Certain versions focus on Zeus freeing his swallowed siblings through cunning and divine assistance. Whatever the exact sequence, the result remains one of mythology's most important turning points. The lost children return. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. The family Cronus tried to erase stands before him once more. Alive, free, whole. Imagine what that moment must feel like. You look upon children you loved, children you feared, children you sacrificed to anxiety, and now they stand grown before you, no longer infants, no longer powerless, no longer under your control. The emotional weight feels enormous. Many later retellings focus on the coming war, yet before war comes recognition. Recognition that choices cannot be undone. Recognition that time moves only forward. Recognition that the future has finally arrived. The reunions themselves carry complex emotions. Rhea sees her children again after ages of separation. Joy mingles with sorrow. Love mingles with grief. Years lost cannot be restored. Yet neither have they been entirely destroyed. The sight overwhelms her, and for a brief moment amid gathering conflict, hope returns. Cronus experiences something very different, because every face reminds him of a decision. Every voice reminds him of fear. Every presence reminds him of failure. The burden becomes difficult to bear. Then the world begins choosing sides. Ancient myths describe the coming conflict as the Titanomachy, the great war between Titans and Olympians, one of the most important struggles in all Greek mythology. Yet at its heart, the war remains deeply personal. This is not merely a battle for power. It is a conflict between generations, a conflict between different visions of the future, a conflict born from choices made long ago. You walk across landscapes preparing for war, mountain passes, sacred groves, rocky coastlines. Everywhere uncertainty spreads. Some Titans remain loyal to Cronus, not because they support every decision he made, because they remember his achievements, the golden age, the prosperity, the peace. They remember the ruler he once was. Others support Zeus. They see courage, renewal, possibility. They see the chance to build something new. Neither side views itself as evil. That complexity gives the story much of its power. The conflict becomes tragic precisely because good intentions exist on both sides. Then another crucial event unfolds. Zeus frees the Cyclopes and the Hundred-Handers, the same imprisoned beings whose suffering first inspired Cronus to challenge Uranus. The symmetry feels remarkable. History repeats. Patterns return. The very act that launched Cronus toward greatness now strengthens the sun, destined to overthrow him. Ancient myths often move in circles. One generation creates the conditions for the next. The freed beings reward Zeus. The Cyclopes forge mighty gifts, the thunderbolt, the trident, the helm of darkness. powerful symbols that later become inseparable from Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Surviving evidence suggests these stories carry deep religious significance for ancient audiences. The gifts symbolize more than weapons. They symbolize legitimacy, the transfer of cosmic authority. Meanwhile, Cronus prepares for war. You stand beside him beneath storm-dark skies. Thunder rolls across distant mountains. Rain sweeps through forests and valleys. The atmosphere feels heavy with inevitability. For years he feared this moment. Now it stands before him, and strangely some of the fear begins fading, because uncertainty has ended. The threat possesses a face, a name, a form: Zeus. Sometimes reality feels easier to confront than imagination. The king who spent years dreading destiny now finds himself meeting it directly. And in doing so, something changes. Not redemption, not peace, clarity. For perhaps the first time in many years, Cronus stops running. The battles begin. Ancient poets describe them on a colossal scale. Mountains shaking, seas roaring, the heavens trembling, the earth groaning beneath unimaginable force. The imagery reflects more than physical conflict. The cosmos itself appears caught between ages, one order ending, another struggling to emerge. You stand amid the chaos. Lightning tears across the sky. Thunder echoes through valleys. The scent of rain and smoke fills the air. Rocks crash from shattered cliffs. The world feels transformed. Yet even within the violence, moments of reflection survive. One evening after battle, Cronus stands alone overlooking a ruined hillside. The storm has passed. The stars have returned. The silence feels almost sacred. For a long time he gazes upward, remembering. He remembers the night he challenged Uranus. The confidence, the certainty, the belief that victory would solve everything. Now he understands how incomplete that belief was. Every triumph creates new responsibilities. Every revolution creates new risks. Every generation eventually faces its own fears. The realization does not erase his mistakes, but it deepens his understanding of them. Another dream comes that night, perhaps the final great dream of his reign. He stands beside an immense wheel turning slowly beneath the stars. Upon the wheel appear countless faces: parents, children, kings, rebels. Each figure rises, rules, falls, then another takes the place. The wheel never stops. When he awakens before dawn, a strange calm remains. Ancient listeners may have interpreted the image in many ways: time, fate, history, the endless succession of generations. Whatever the meaning, the message feels clear. No ruler remains forever. No age remains forever. Not even the Golden Age. The war continues. Year after year, victory remains uncertain. The world waits. The gods wait. The future waits. And at the center stands Cronus, fighting not only against his son, but against the deepest truth of existence itself: change. Yet even now, destiny has not fully revealed its final intention. For the end of the war approaches. And with it, the final reckoning between the king who built a paradise and the fear that ultimately destroyed it. Every age eventually reaches its evening. The sun that once rose bright and full begins sinking toward the horizon. The songs grow quieter. The celebrations become memories. And even the greatest kingdoms discover that time asks a price for everything. You stand beside Cronus during the final years of the Titanomachy. The world bears the marks of conflict. Mountains have been broken. Valleys reshaped. Ancient forests scarred by battles between immortal powers. The air itself feels tired, as though creation longs for rest. For 10 long years, according to many traditions, the war has raged. 10 years of storms, 10 years of uncertainty, 10 years of watching destiny slowly unfold. Neither side expected such endurance. Neither side expected such sacrifice. Yet the struggle continued, because neither side fought merely for power. They fought for a vision of the future. And visions are difficult to surrender. You walk among the titans gathered around their king. The atmosphere feels different now, quieter, more reflective. Many of them remember the beginning, the rebellion against Uranus, the birth of the Golden Age, the years when the world seemed capable of becoming something extraordinary. Those memories remain powerful, even after everything that has happened, especially after everything that has happened, because memory often softens the edges of reality. It preserves beauty. It preserves hope. Sometimes it preserves regret. Cronus feels all three. One evening, he stands alone beside a cliff overlooking a sea, darkened by approaching twilight. The scent of salt rides the wind. Far below, waves strike ancient rocks. The sky glows with fading gold. For a long time, he simply watches. No advisors, no warriors, no family, only silence. The moment feels important because so much of his life has been spent surrounded by noise, prophecies, warnings, arguments, fears. Now at the edge of defeat, silence returns, and within that silence reflection becomes unavoidable. You can almost hear his thoughts. The prisoners beneath the earth, the overthrow of Uranus, the first years of peace, the birth of his children, the choices he made, the choices he failed to make. All of it unfolds before him like scenes from a distant dream. Ancient storytellers rarely tell us exactly what Cronus felt, yet the myths leave clues, and those clues suggest something profound. He understands, perhaps not everything, perhaps not perfectly, but enough. Enough to recognize that fear shaped his destiny more than prophecy ever did. That realization carries tremendous weight, because it transforms the story. The tragedy is no longer that fate proved unavoidable. The tragedy is that fear helped create the future it feared. Many ancient listeners likely recognized this lesson. Many modern listeners recognize it as well. The details change. The emotions do not. The following days bring decisive battles. The Olympians grow stronger. The 100-handers unleash tremendous force. The balance shifts, slowly at first, then rapidly. The signs become impossible to ignore. The age of the Titans is ending. You stand beside Cronus during one of the final confrontations. Lightning flashes across dark skies. Thunder shakes distant mountains. The sea roars against the shore. The world feels caught between destruction and rebirth. Across the battlefield stands Zeus, no longer a hidden child, no longer a distant threat, a king in the making. The resemblance surprises you. Not physical resemblance, something deeper. Both possess determination. Both possess courage. Both believe they are protecting the world. For a brief moment, the symmetry feels almost painful. The son resembles the father more than either wishes to admit. Perhaps that is another reason these myths endure. Generations often repeat each other even while trying to become different. The battle reaches its climax. Ancient poets describe mountains hurled through the air, lightning illuminating entire horizons, the earth trembling beneath divine power. The imagery becomes enormous, mythic, almost impossible to visualize completely, yet beneath the spectacle remains a simple truth. An old ruler is losing his world. A new ruler is claiming it. Eventually, the outcome can no longer be denied. The Titans fall. The Olympians triumph. The war ends. The prophecy is fulfilled. For the second time in cosmic history, a son overthrows his father. The wheel turns. The pattern repeats. The future arrives. And suddenly, after so many years of struggle, there is quiet. The silence after a storm. The silence after grief. The silence after inevitability. What happens next depends upon which tradition you follow. The most familiar version tells of Cronus being cast into Tartarus, a vast abyss beneath the world, a prison for defeated titans, a place associated with darkness and separation. Many ancient Greeks accepted this account. Yet another tradition survives, a gentler tradition, a more mysterious one. In certain stories, Zeus eventually allows Cronus to rule the Isles of the Blessed, a distant paradise reserved for favored souls, a peaceful realm beyond suffering. Historians continue debating how these traditions developed. Perhaps different communities preferred different endings. Perhaps changing religious beliefs reshaped older stories. No one knows for certain, and perhaps that uncertainty matters, because mythology often preserves multiple truths simultaneously. The defeated king, the remembered benefactor, the tyrant, the creator of the golden age. Cronus becomes all of them, and none of them entirely. You imagine him after the war, the battles finished, the noise gone, the ambitions exhausted. What remains? Not power, not fear, not authority. Memory. Memory becomes his final companion. He remembers Rhea, the woman who loved him before fear changed everything. He remembers his children, not as threats, not as prophecies, as children. The realization arrives too late. Many important realizations do. Yet perhaps lateness does not erase their value. Perhaps understanding still matters. Even at the end, one final dream comes to him. The dream feels different from the others, gentler. He stands once again beside the great tree from earlier visions. Its roots reach deep into the earth. Its branches touch the stars. This time there is no shadow, no crack, no warning. Instead, he notices something he never saw before. New trees growing nearby, not replacing the original tree. Continuing the forest. When he awakens, a strange peace remains. The image feels symbolic, not of loss, of succession. The world does not end when one generation passes. It continues, changes, grows. That truth once terrified him. Now it feels almost comforting. The stars shine above the sleeping world. The war is over. The golden age belongs to memory. The reign of Zeus begins, yet the story of Cronus has not ended. Because defeat is not the final measure of a life, legacy is. And in the centuries to come, mortals will continue telling stories about the Titan King, who ruled during the happiest age the world ever knew. The question that remains is simple. How should he be remembered? The answer, like the man himself, is far more complicated than it first appears. Defeat changes the sound of the world. The roar of battle disappears. The clash of weapons fades. The arguments end. And what remains is silence. You stand beside Cronus in the aftermath of the Titanomachy. The war is over. The future belongs to the Olympians. The great struggle that shook heaven, earth, and sea has passed into memory. For the first time in countless ages, the former king has nowhere left to run, nowhere left to fight, nowhere left to hide. Only himself remains. Ancient traditions offer different visions of what follows. In the most familiar stories, Cronus is cast into Tartarus, far below the world, far below sunlight, far below the realms of gods and mortals. The abyss feels vast beyond imagination. Cold winds move through endless darkness. Ancient stone walls disappear into shadow. The silence feels almost alive. You walk beside him through that silence. For a being who once ruled the cosmos, the contrast is extraordinary. No throne, no servants, no authority, only time. And time can become a difficult companion, especially for someone whose entire life was shaped by the fear of losing power. Now power is gone. The fear has nothing left to protect. At first, the loss feels unbearable. Cronus remembers the golden age. The festivals, the songs, the grateful faces of mortals, the long years when the world seemed balanced. The memories return constantly. Sometimes they comfort him, sometimes they wound him. Most often they do both. One evening, if evenings can even be measured in a place beyond ordinary sunlight, he sits alone beside a dark river flowing through Tartarus. The water moves slowly. Its surface reflects no stars, no moon, only darkness. For a long time he watches the current, listening, thinking, and gradually something begins changing, not around him, within him. Many ancient myths contain a pattern. Heroes gain wisdom after suffering. Kings gain understanding after losing kingdoms. Those who once possessed everything finally see clearly after it is gone. Perhaps this pattern exists because human beings recognize it, or perhaps because storytellers do. Whatever the reason, Cronus now enters that stage of his life. Reflection. The memories arrive one by one. He remembers the cries beneath the earth, the imprisoned brothers, Gaia's sorrow, the decision to challenge Uranus. At the time, everything felt obvious, necessary, just, and perhaps much of it was. The prisoners truly suffered. The old ruler truly feared what he could not control. The rebellion genuinely changed the world for the better. That truth remains. Yet another truth emerges beside it. He never stopped carrying the fear he hated. He overthrew it, then inherited it. The realization hurts, because it feels undeniable. One day he speaks aloud. No audience waits nearby. No one hears. Perhaps he speaks only for himself. I became what I feared. The words disappear into the darkness. Yet saying them matters, because honesty often begins where excuses end. The statement does not erase his mistakes. Nothing can, but it marks a turning point. The former king has stopped blaming prophecy alone. He has begun acknowledging his own choices, and choice remains important, even within myths dominated by fate. You sit beside him during long periods of contemplation. The atmosphere feels calm, almost meditative, the cold stone beneath you, the distant sound of water, the stillness. In some ways, this stage of his story feels unlike everything before it. There are no battles, no revolutions, no prophecies, only understanding arriving slowly, like dawn. Far away above the world, life continues. The Olympians establish their order. Mortals continue building settlements. New stories emerge. New heroes prepare for destinies not yet imagined. Time moves forward. Yet here within the depths, Cronus remains connected to memory. One dream returns frequently. The great wheel, the endless turning, the generations rising and falling. Only now he notices something new. The wheel never appears cruel, only inevitable. This distinction changes everything. For most of his life, he viewed succession as a threat. Now he begins seeing it differently, as part of existence itself. The seasons replace one another. Children replace parents. New rulers replace old ones. The process can feel painful. Yet it also allows the world to continue. Ancient agricultural societies likely understood this symbolism deeply. Harvest follows growth. Winter follows autumn. Nothing remains fixed forever. Not even paradise. The more he reflects, the more the Golden Age itself changes within memory. For years, he viewed it as something stolen from him, a lost treasure, a kingdom destroyed by fate. Now another perspective emerges. The Golden Age existed. It was real. And perhaps its value does not depend upon lasting forever. A flower remains beautiful despite fading. A sunset remains meaningful despite ending. The same may be true of ages. The realization brings unexpected peace. Not complete peace. Some wounds remain. They always will. He still remembers Rhea. Her patience, her wisdom, her sorrow. Those memories remain difficult. Among all his regrets, none weigh more heavily. Because she offered another path repeatedly. Trust instead of fear. Love instead of control. Faith instead of certainty. Again and again, and again. He could not follow it. Not then. One tradition tells of Rhea visiting him after the war. Whether literal or symbolic, the story survives because it speaks to something important. Forgiveness. Not forgetting. Not excusing. Forgiveness. Historians continue debating such traditions. Yet many ancient audiences clearly valued them. Perhaps because reconciliation feels more satisfying than endless punishment. Or perhaps because even fallen kings remain human enough to deserve compassion. The story offers no certainty, only possibility, and possibility often matters. As the years pass, another version of Cronus begins emerging. Not the tyrant, not the conqueror, not the fearful father, the elder, the figure shaped by experience, the ruler who understands the cost of power. Ancient cultures often transformed older gods into symbols of wisdom and memory. Perhaps this process happened here as well. Because stories rarely preserve only what someone did. They preserve what someone learned. One night, a final omen appears. A small light glows across the darkness of Tartarus. Soft, golden, gentle. It resembles a distant hearth fire. For a moment, Cronus thinks of Hestia, his first child. The daughter whose birth once filled him with joy. The daughter whose innocence he allowed fear to corrupt. The memory hurts. Yet alongside the pain comes gratitude. Because memory itself remains a gift. The light fades slowly. The darkness returns. But something remains changed. The former king no longer spends his days asking how he lost everything. Instead, he asks a different question. What remains worth remembering? The answer will shape the next chapter of his story. Because while kings may fall, legends continue living. And among mortals, the memory of Cronus is only beginning its longest journey. Long after battles end, stories remain. Long after kingdoms vanish, memories survive. And long after rulers lose their thrones, people continue asking the same question. What kind of person were they really? You stand beside a fire burning in a small village many generations after the Titanomachy. The night feels calm. The scent of wood smoke drifts through cool air. Above, countless stars shimmer across the heavens. Around the fire sit farmers, travelers, shepherds, and fishermen. Their lives are ordinary. Their concerns familiar. The weather, the harvest, the future. And yet tonight they speak of a king who no longer rules. Cronus. This is one of mythology's most fascinating transformations. Because the defeated Titan does not disappear from memory. He remains, not merely as a warning, as a symbol. Different people remember him differently. Some recall the fearful father who swallowed his children. Others remember the ruler of the Golden Age. Many remember both. And that complexity allows his story to survive. Simple villains are often forgotten. Contradictions endure. The villagers tell stories passed down through generations. Stories of a time when the earth provided generously, when conflict was rare, when life felt closer to harmony. As the flames crackle softly before you, it becomes clear that the Golden Age has grown larger within memory than it ever was in life. This happens often. Human beings do not simply remember the past. They reshape it, polish it, transform it. Ancient Greece was no different. Each generation facing hardship looked backward toward the imagined perfection of earlier times. And there waiting in the distance stood Cronus, the king of a lost paradise. You travel across the Greek world listening to these stories. In coastal towns, fishermen speak of an age when nature itself cooperated with humanity. In mountain villages, shepherds tell tales of peaceful seasons untouched by war. In fertile valleys, farmers remember Cronus whenever harvests prove especially abundant. His name becomes associated with prosperity, with plenty, with abundance. The connection grows stronger over time. Surviving evidence suggests that festivals honoring Cronus eventually developed in various regions. These celebrations often emphasized feasting equality and temporary freedom from ordinary social rules. Some researchers believe such traditions reflected collective memories of the Golden Age. Others suggest they expressed humanity's longing for a more balanced world. Perhaps both ideas contain truth. Myths rarely survive for only one reason. One autumn evening you arrive at such a festival. The atmosphere feels joyful. Torches illuminate village streets. Music drifts through the air. The scent of fresh bread and roasted grain fills the night. Children run laughing between groups of dancers. For a few precious hours, ordinary concerns seem distant. People celebrate together. Rich and poor, young and old. The distinctions separating them become less important. And throughout the festivities, the name of Cronus appears repeatedly, not as a defeated king, as a remembered benefactor. The transformation feels remarkable, because history and memory rarely tell identical stories. History remembers events, memory remembers meaning. Among ordinary people, the meaning of Cronus increasingly outweighs the details of his downfall. You begin noticing another pattern. Whenever people describe the Golden Age, they often reveal more about themselves than about the past. A farmer struggling through difficult seasons dreams of abundance. A soldier dreams of peace. A grieving parent dreams of a world without suffering. Each person adds something personal to the myth. The result becomes larger than any single historical memory. Cronus evolves into an idea, an archetype, the ruler of a better time. Yet not everyone views him positively. Some storytellers emphasize the darker aspects of his life. The prophecy, the fear, the swallowed children. Their versions serve a different purpose. A warning about power, a warning about control, a warning about allowing fear to govern decisions. Both traditions survive side by side, and perhaps that is fitting, because both contain truth. One afternoon you listen to an elderly poet reciting stories beside a harbor. The sea glitters beneath bright sunlight, ships drift gently against wooden docks. The crowd gathers quietly. The poet's voice carries across the water. He speaks of Cronus not as hero or villain, but as tragedy. A ruler who achieved greatness, a ruler who lost himself, a ruler whose finest qualities created his greatest vulnerabilities. The interpretation feels profound, because it captures the paradox at the center of his life. He loved the world enough to protect it, then feared losing it enough to damage it. The line between virtue and flaw often proves thinner than people expect. The poet understands this, and perhaps the audience does too. As centuries pass, another transformation occurs. The Greeks are not the only people telling stories. Across the Mediterranean, new cultures encounter older myths. Among them are the Romans. They identify Cronus with a deity called Saturn. The association becomes extremely influential. In Roman tradition, Saturn retains many connections to prosperity agriculture and the memory of an earlier golden age. The famous festival of Saturnalia eventually emerges from these beliefs. During Saturnalia, ordinary social rules temporarily relax. People feast, celebrate, exchange gifts. The atmosphere echoes many themes associated with Cronus: freedom, abundance, joy. Ancient writers often described Saturn's reign as a time of extraordinary peace. The similarities are impossible to ignore. Through Saturn, the memory of Cronus spreads even farther, far beyond Greece, far beyond the original myths, far beyond the world he once ruled. You stand amid one of these celebrations. Laughter fills the streets. Candles glow in windows. Music echoes from nearby homes. The scene feels warm, comforting, human, and once again the fallen Titan appears not as a prisoner of Tartarus, but as a symbol of possibility, a reminder that people never stop dreaming about better times. Historians continue debating exactly how these traditions evolved. Did religious practices influence mythology? Or did mythology shape religious practices? The relationship remains complicated, yet the result is clear. Cronus survives, not physically, culturally, emotionally, symbolically. His story becomes part of something larger than himself. One evening, as the sun sets across the sea, you imagine the former king hearing these stories. The villagers, the poets, the festivals, the memories. Would he feel pride, sadness, regret? Perhaps all three, because memory rarely offers simple judgments. Instead, it preserves contradictions, and few figures embody contradiction more completely than Cronus. The king who created peace, the father who feared his children, the rebel who became the thing he opposed, the ruler whose greatest triumph and greatest failure emerged from the same heart. The stars slowly appear above the darkening horizon. The harbor grows quiet. The stories continue. And with every retelling, Cronus moves farther from history and deeper into legend. Yet one question remains unanswered. Why did humanity hold so tightly to the dream of the Golden Age? Why did generation after generation continue longing for a world they never truly knew? The answer lies beyond memory alone. It lies within something deeper, a universal longing carried by nearly every culture on Earth. And that longing will guide the next chapter of his legacy. There are some places that exist more clearly in memory than on any map. You cannot sail to them. You cannot walk to them. You cannot point toward them across the horizon. Yet people spend entire lifetimes searching for them. The Golden Age is one of those places. You stand beneath a sky filled with stars as a cool night breeze moves through an olive grove. The scent of earth and leaves lingers in the air. Nearby, a small fire burns softly, sending sparks upward into the darkness. Around that fire, stories continue. Always the same dream. Always the same longing. A time when life felt easier, kinder, more harmonious. A time associated with Cronus. Yet an important question remains. Did people truly remember the Golden Age, or did they create it? The answer is not simple, and perhaps that uncertainty explains why the myth endured for so long. Across ancient Greece, generations inherited stories of Cronus's reign. Each generation added something. Each generation interpreted the tale through its own struggles. During times of war, the Golden Age represented peace. During famine, it represented abundance. During political turmoil, it represented stability. The myth became a mirror. People saw within it whatever they most deeply desired. You travel through villages, temples, and harbor towns, listening to those desires. The pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Very few people describe the Golden Age exactly the same way. One farmer imagines endless harvests. A sailor imagines calm seas. A mother imagines children safe from suffering. A poet imagines perfect justice. The details differ. The longing remains identical. Perhaps that is the true legacy of Cronus. Not merely a kingdom. A dream. A dream powerful enough to survive thousands of years. One afternoon you visit a temple overlooking a broad valley. The air feels warm. Cicadas sing among olive trees. Far below, fields shimmer beneath sunlight. An elderly priest tends a sacred fire near the entrance. The flames burn steadily despite the breeze. You ask him why people continue speaking about the Golden Age. The old man smiles. Then he offers a surprisingly simple answer. Because people remember what is missing. The words linger. Because they feel true. Not only for ancient Greece, for every age. Human beings often define paradise by the absence of whatever troubles them most. The myth of Cronus becomes a vessel carrying that desire. A reminder that another world might be possible. Whether it ever existed becomes almost secondary. As evening approaches, you continue reflecting upon the strange duality of Cronus's legacy. He remains remembered for abundance. Yet he also remains remembered for fear, for harmony, and for tragedy. The contradiction fascinates historians even today. Some researchers believe the Golden Age myth reflects very ancient agricultural traditions. Others suggest it emerged as a response to social and political change. Another interpretation survives among scholars of mythology. They argue that the Golden Age represents a universal human archetype, the memory of an ideal beginning, a symbolic paradise existing at the start of every culture's story. No single explanation fully captures the myth. Perhaps that is why it survives. The best myths rarely belong to one interpretation. They remain open, flexible, alive. You imagine ordinary Greeks looking toward the past. Life can be difficult. Harvests fail. Storms arrive. People age. Loved ones die. Against such realities, the Golden Age offers comfort. A reminder that harmony remains imaginable. And imagination possesses extraordinary power. One night, while listening to waves break gently against a moonlit shore, you think about Cronus himself, not the symbol. The individual, the titan, the father, the king. What would he think of the stories told in his name? Would he recognize himself? Perhaps partly, yet perhaps not entirely. Because legends often simplify what life complicates. The real Cronus experienced doubt, fear, love, regret. The legendary Cronus increasingly becomes an embodiment of paradise, a figure standing at the entrance to a lost world. The transformation feels both beautiful and sad. Beautiful because it preserves hope. Sad because it leaves so much complexity behind. Ancient storytellers occasionally acknowledge this tension. Some versions of the myth quietly remind audiences that the ruler of the Golden Age was also deeply flawed. The paradise itself was imperfect because its king was imperfect. That detail matters because it prevents the story from becoming merely nostalgic. Instead, it becomes human. A paradise ruled by a flawless being teaches little. A paradise ruled by someone struggling with fear teaches much more. You sit beside another fire as night deepens. The stars shine brilliantly overhead. The scent of wood smoke mixes with cool sea air. A traveling storyteller speaks softly to those gathered around him. He tells of Cronus, the overthrow of Uranus, the years of abundance, the prophecy, the downfall. The audience listens carefully. When the story ends, no one speaks immediately. The silence feels meaningful. Then a young listener asks a question. Was the Golden Age real? The storyteller smiles, not because he knows the answer, because he understands the question. After a long pause, he replies, "It is real whenever people try to build it." The response contains wisdom, because perhaps the Golden Age was never meant to be only a memory. Perhaps it was meant to be an aspiration, a direction, a reminder of what humanity values most: peace, justice, community, balance, the same ideals that inspired the best years of Cronus's reign. As the fire burns lower, another thought emerges. The Golden Age was not destroyed solely by prophecy. It was damaged by fear. That distinction remains important. Again and again, the myth returns to the same lesson. Fear narrows vision. Fear seeks control. Fear transforms loved ones into threats. The story of Cronus survives partly because every generation recognizes this danger. The details may change. The emotional truth remains. The moon climbs higher above the sea. The waves continue their patient rhythm. And somewhere within the endless chain of storytellers, listeners and dreamers, the memory of the Golden Age continues evolving. Not fixed, not finished, still growing, still teaching, still inspiring. Yet one final question remains. Beyond the paradise, beyond the symbolism, beyond the dream, what does Cronus ultimately represent? A tyrant, a victim of fate, a tragic king, a warning, a memory. The answer lies within the final stage of his journey, because the deepest meaning of his life emerges not from his victories or defeats, but from the paradox he leaves behind. And that paradox still speaks to us beneath the same stars that once shone over ancient Greece. The older a story becomes, the more questions it leaves behind. The battles fade, the names endure, the details blur, the meaning remains. You stand upon a quiet hillside overlooking the sea as dawn slowly brightens the horizon. The air feels cool against your skin. Dew clings to wild grasses. Somewhere below, waves roll gently toward the shore. The world seems peaceful, far removed from prophecies, far removed from wars, far removed from the fears that once consumed a king. And yet even here, the story of Cronus lingers, because his life contains a paradox that refuses to disappear. The titan who overthrew a tyrant became one. The ruler who created paradise helped destroy it. The father who loved his children feared them. The contradictions seem impossible to reconcile. Yet perhaps that is exactly why the myth survives. Simple stories offer answers. Complex stories offer understanding. Cronus belongs to the second kind. You spend time reflecting upon the many roles he played throughout his life. Son, rebel, liberator, king, husband, father, prisoner, legend. Each role reveals a different aspect of the same individual, and each role carries both light and shadow. When he challenged Uranus, he acted courageously. Without that courage, the imprisoned brothers would have remained beneath the earth. Gaia's suffering would have continued. The old order might never have changed. His rebellion mattered. It improved the world. Yet the very success of that rebellion planted another fear within him, the fear of losing what he gained. Many myths contain monsters. Few contain a monster more subtle than that, the fear of loss. The fear appears understandable, even relatable, and perhaps that is what makes it dangerous. Cronus does not fall because he hates his children. He falls because he cannot bear the possibility of losing everything. The distinction changes how you understand him. He is not merely a villain. He is a warning about what fear can become when left unchecked. One afternoon, you imagine him during the happiest years of the Golden Age. The world flourishing, the harvests abundant, the people content. At that moment, he possesses nearly everything he ever desired. Peace, stability, purpose, love. Yet even then, anxiety waits beneath the surface, because fear rarely asks how much you have. It asks what might disappear. Ancient audiences likely recognize this truth immediately. Many modern listeners recognize it as well. The emotions have not changed, only the surroundings. The more deeply you examine his story, the clearer another pattern becomes. Cronus spends much of his life fighting fate, first through rebellion, later through control. Both struggles define him. Both ultimately fail. Yet failure does not necessarily make them meaningless. This idea appears repeatedly throughout Greek mythology. Characters often resist destiny. Sometimes they succeed temporarily. Sometimes they fail completely. Yet the resistance itself reveals character. It reveals what they value, what they fear, what they hope to protect. In that sense, Cronus' struggle against prophecy tells us everything. He values the world he built. He values his family. He values continuity. The tragedy lies in how he chooses to defend those values. You walk through an ancient temple where poets and priests have left offerings over many generations. The scent of incense lingers in the air. Sunlight filters through stone columns. The atmosphere feels timeless. Here, stories survive longer than kingdoms. And among those stories, Cronus remains uniquely difficult to judge. Some visitors see him as a cautionary tale. Others see him as a fallen hero. Still others see him as both simultaneously. The ambiguity feels appropriate, because real lives rarely fit into simple categories. The best myths understand this. One surviving interpretation fascinates many scholars. It suggests that Cronus represents time itself. The connection becomes especially strong through his Roman counterpart Saturn. Time creates, time nourishes, time destroys. Time eventually consumes everything it produces. The symbolism feels powerful. Whether ancient Greeks originally intended it remains uncertain. Historians continue debating the connection. Yet the image endures. Cronus's time. The father devouring his children. The years consuming generations. The cycle repeating endlessly. Even if symbolic rather than original, the interpretation captures something profound, because time truly stands at the center of his story. Every fear he experiences concerns the future. Every regret concerns the past. Every tragedy emerges from his inability to remain fully present. The realization feels surprisingly modern, and perhaps surprisingly human. As evening approaches, you sit beside the sea watching sunlight fade across the horizon. The water glows gold. The sky slowly darkens. The world becomes quieter. Moments like this help explain why myths endure. They offer mirrors, not perfect reflections, but reflections nonetheless. Within Cronus, people recognize pieces of themselves. The desire to protect what they love, the fear of change, the longing for a better world, the temptation to control uncertain outcomes. The emotions remain familiar, even thousands of years later. That familiarity transforms the myth from ancient history into something timeless. One final image returns repeatedly throughout the traditions surrounding Cronus. The wheel, the turning cycle, the endless movement from parent to child, from ruler to successor, from one age to the next. The image appears in different forms across many cultures, because the truth it expresses feels universal. Nothing remains fixed. Nothing remains permanent. The challenge is learning to accept that reality without surrendering hope. Cronus never fully learns that lesson, at least not until very late. Yet perhaps the attempt still matters. Perhaps even flawed understanding retains value. The stars begin appearing overhead, one by one, silent, patient, ancient, the same stars that watched Uranus fall, the same stars that watched the Golden Age flourish, the same stars that watched Zeus rise. And beneath those stars, humanity continues telling stories, not because myths provide perfect answers, because they provide meaningful questions. Cronus leaves behind many such questions. Can power remain compassionate? Can love survive fear? Can people protect what matters without trying to control everything? Can destiny be resisted or only understood? The story never resolves these questions completely. Perhaps it was never meant to. Instead, it invites reflection. And reflection often proves more valuable than certainty. The sea grows darker, the stars grow brighter, and the life of Cronus approaches its final chapter. Not the chapter of defeat, not the chapter of memory, the chapter of legacy. For when the noise of history fades completely, only one thing remains: the echo. And the echo of Cronus still travels through time. The night is peaceful now. The battles are long finished. The prophecies have fallen silent. The kingdoms of gods and titans belong to memory. You stand beside the sea beneath a sky overflowing with stars. The waves move gently across the shore. A cool breeze carries the scent of salt and distant pine. Somewhere beyond the darkness, unseen birds call softly through the night. The world feels older, wiser, calmer. And here at the end of the journey, The life of Cronus feels different than it did at the beginning. When you first met him, he was a child standing beneath the shadow of heaven, a son trying to understand a complicated world, a young titan listening to mysterious voices beneath the earth, a dreamer standing before destiny. Now you look back across the entirety of his life. The victories, the mistakes, the hopes, the fears, the love, the regret, and the story seems less like the rise and fall of a king, more like the story of time itself, because time touches everything. It raises mountains, it wears them away, it creates families, it separates them, it builds kingdoms, it eventually transforms them into stories. Perhaps this is why later traditions linked Cronus with Saturn. The association survives because it feels meaningful, not merely historically, emotionally. The ruler of the Golden Age became a symbol of cycles, of seasons, of generations replacing generations, of the endless movement of existence. You imagine him now wherever myth finally places him, perhaps in Tartarus reflecting beside silent rivers, perhaps in the Isles of the Blessed walking through peaceful meadows beneath gentle sunlight, perhaps somewhere beyond both stories, a figure existing only within memory. Ancient myths rarely provide a single answer, and perhaps that uncertainty feels appropriate, because human beings are rarely remembered in only one way. Neither are gods, neither are titans. Cronus remains many things simultaneously: the son who challenged injustice, the ruler who created abundance, the father who surrendered to fear, the king who lost everything, the legend who never truly disappeared. Each version contains part of the truth. None contains all of it. The waves continue their steady rhythm. The stars wheel slowly overhead. And as you sit beside the sea, another realization begins emerging. The Golden Age was never really about perfection. Perfection cannot survive in a world shaped by time. No season lasts forever. No kingdom lasts forever. No life lasts forever. What made the Golden Age meaningful was not its permanence. It was its existence. For a time, however brief compared to eternity, peace flourished. For a time, the world felt harmonious. For a time, people believed abundance and kindness could prevail. That matters. Even if it ended, perhaps especially because it ended. The memory remains valuable precisely because it was temporary, like a beautiful sunset, like spring blossoms, like childhood, like love. Many of the most precious things in existence are precious because they do not last. Cronus spent much of his life trying to prevent change, trying to stop the future, trying to hold tightly to what he loved. And in doing so, he learned the lessons shared by so many myths. The future cannot be imprisoned. The next generation cannot be stopped forever. The wheel turns, the seasons change, the stars continue moving across the heavens. Acceptance does not mean surrender. It means understanding. Late in life, perhaps he finally understood. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to see that succession is not destruction. Enough to see that children are not enemies. Enough to see that fear had become a heavier burden than fate itself. That understanding arrives late, yet it arrives, and sometimes that is enough. You think of Rhea, patient beneath the stars, carrying hope through years of sorrow. You think of Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus, the children whose lives shape the destiny of the cosmos. You think of Gaia, the ancient Earth Mother who first saw the possibility of change. Each relationship left its mark upon Cronus. Each one helped shape the person he became. And perhaps that is another lesson hidden within the myth. No life exists alone. Every choice touches someone else. Every fear spreads outward. Every act of love does as well. The sea breeze grows softer. The night deepens. The world becomes quieter. Faraway villages sleep. Harbors rest beneath moonlight. Olive groves whisper beneath the wind. The same landscapes that once witnessed titans and gods now belong to ordinary people. And still the stories remain. Parents tell them to children. Poets sing them beside fires. Travelers carry them across mountains and seas. Generation after generation, century after century, the names endure. Uranus, Gaia, Rhea, Zeus, and always somewhere among them Cronus. Not forgotten, not condemned entirely, not celebrated entirely, remembered, simply remembered. Perhaps that is the final destiny of every life. Not perfection, not immortality, memory. The quiet echo left behind after everything else has passed. The stars shine gently above you. The sea continues its endless song. And somewhere within the darkness, beyond the reach of history, beyond the reach of prophecy, beyond the rise and fall of kingdoms, the story finally grows still. The child beneath the shadow of heaven, the king of the Golden Age. the father who feared the future. The Titan who learned too late that love and control are not the same thing. His journey is over. The waves roll softly onto the shore. The wind moves through distant trees. The night holds its silence. And beneath the ancient stars, the memory of Cronus drifts peacefully into legend. Sleep comes easily now. The story has ended, and the stars continue turning above the world.